Yeah, aloha everyone. So I just want to start if you could raise your hand if you're familiar with Korean natural farming already. Oh, awesome. Cool. So about half, and then Johnny's showing this a little bit. That's good. That's good. Right on. Oh, you got the Jadam book. Cool. I heard that it is assigned reading for you guys. And so today I'll get my presentation going. Okay, so this is the solutions here. So today I'm talking about the KNF solutions and cooperating with what I call the Microbial Secret Society. And I think basically this presentation, I don't know if it'll take full hour, 2 hours, however we go through, like, and then what I'd like to do is kind of do question and answer with you guys so that if you have questions. So what I'm going to do is kind of set the foundation for you guys. And then um, talk a little bit about the solutions as well as kind of this big analogy of how it goes so that you can have a kind of sixth grader understanding. Because if you can understand it and you can teach it to a kid, then everyone should understand. So when I present, I try not to get too complex because you can get real scientific. You can talk all about elements, all about chemistry, all those things. But I find the easiest thing to do is to understand as a human being, because as farmers, just simple things that we know, and if we learn by analogy, we can get there. So if you see on the screen, we got this microbe here, and he's unlocking the box of soil fertility. And the main goal I'm going to talk about today is using the KNF solutions to ease the stress in the soil. Because if your things are stressed, then you're stressed, your plants are stressed, and it all starts with relieving stress on the most micro level. And then from there, good things unfold. So a little bit about myself before I get into it. I usually don't even include this slide. I just usually try to stay humble, but I figure it might be good for you guys to get to know me a little bit. Especially since you guys are mostly on Maui. I'm born and raised on the Big Island. I was born in Hilo Hospital, and I went to Montana State University to learn about computer science. I figured, what else I can learn? So I wanted to learn about artificial intelligence and go learn like the highest stuff we can learn in in Western science in university because I had the chance to go there. But I graduated, I moved back, started running for political office, and I realized that stuff is nuts. And I just wanted to help. That's why I decided, get in politics because things are so corrupt over there. But I realized it's even more deeper than that. It's in the root, it's in our food supply. And if we want real change, we cannot just go politics and money. We actually got to go roots and food and address the basics before. Because if you cannot eat, then why are you arguing about politics? And if you're not eating good food, then you cannot even think good, and then you can't even make good laws. So I got real lucky that when I was running for political office, I started to meet my community because I moved from Puna out to the other side of Hilo while I was in college. My parents moved. And I got lucky to become a student of Master Han Kyu Cho. You guys heard of him? He's like the legendary natural farmer from Korea. So he started to teach me, and I started to learn from my neighbors, Ginger John, Dr. Park, Kim Chang. But being his student, I got to learn kind of the best. And it's kind of weird that you would find the best kind farming when you started just out. You'd think you'd learn and then progress and progress. I just happened to learn from him, and I'm kind of biased. I'll say he's the best. There's probably better guys, but it turns out Korean natural farming is very similar to almost all indigenous farming everywhere. It's not just Korea. This is you go learn from anybody, the ancient Japanese, the Hawaiians, any Native Americans, all practicing some version of Korean natural farming. And I just call it that because it's a set of tools. It's not like I'm not even Korean. So um, myself right now, I'm the president of the East Hawaii chapter. I've been in Farmers Union for 6 years, something like that. Started as a treasurer, um, but I wasn't very good at that. Became the secretary. I was a little bit better at that. And then now I became the president of East Hawaii chapter after one of one of the best farmers I know moved back to Oregon because of just all kind of troubles here of just farming is not easy. So he moved to a more farming oriented community. Um, I got the chance to go Korea 2009. And since then, I've been back and forth about a dozen times, also helped facilitate Master Cho coming here planning. And as soon as I saw this stuff in Korea, I started to turn our farm into a model farm to replicate these things because the people doing it were successful. And have you guys heard of the no smell pigs? It's like phenomenal. People don't even believe it. They come to my farm, they don't even know, like, and there's no smell. And so I immediately started to put the pig pen in with my dad. We finished building that in 2012. I've been running since 2012 to today. I've had between right now I have 3 pigs, but I've had up to 4, which is the amount you can have without getting a special permit. And then chickens. And once you get the pigs, then you pretty soon gonna become a farmer because pigs is hungry. Every day they eat choke food and I wanna feed them the best food. So I'm growing banana stalk, cassava, sugar cane, pele, and I feed my pigs a bunch of waste papaya that I get right now, but that's about to dwindle on me. So I'm really in the middle of getting this together. And then since I've been learning natural farming, I was an elementary school teacher down in Kalana Anaole School. Did that for 5 years, but then I quit that to go full natural farming and basically been making my living and supplementing my farm as an educator because people want to learn this. And I've been able to take what was coming from Korea and put it into English, put it into simple concepts, and just become a all-around educator. Just my whole passion is to share this because one person cannot do it alone and the ecosystem needs all this. So I've been an accredited teacher teaching other people, and that's what I've been doing right now. The websites I just put up on the screen have been projects I've been using to share this around the world. The top one, naturalfarminghawaii.net, had this thing since about 2011. I used to use it to organize a community group in Hilo where we'd meet once a month. Sometimes we have 200 people come out prior to last year. And we'd always have potluck. Then we'd share a recipe so that even new people could learn a recipe. Then veterans could share how this recipe has changed their farm and their life. And then we'd always end with potluck. And the only rule was had to sit by someone you didn't know. So that way you get to go and interchange and exchange with people, and people get to feel the, the camaraderie, the friendship that way, and people get to share. So naturalfarminghawaii.net has a lot of recipes on it, but it was kind of a personal project, and I never took this stuff too serious. I never realized how much kuleana and how much importance this is, like, and how much weight is on my shoulders. I just thought, oh yeah, other people can get them too, but so I'm trying to make it more professional. So the next website down is pureknf.org, and that's the professional website that we're putting together. I've been blessed to get a big donation that I've been able to build a nonprofit foundation out of. And I'm trying to really share natural farming research as well as accreditation. So if you want to get certified, we've been doing that through the foundation. And it's this kind of credentials that just shows the world, like, how it's supposed to be and you can do it. I don't want it as something like holding you back, like, oh, you're not certified, no can practice. I want it like, oh, I'm certified and now I'm better. But if you're not certified, no worries. Like, and you don't need to be, you can learn your own, you can do this stuff. But if you get the kind, then you can put the stamp, then you can be like, oh, you know. And right now my main goal is to train other teachers and get more stuff out that way. The next website down, knfvideo.com, just redirects you to my YouTube. Every time I go Korea, I stand there with an iPad filming. My arms get sore, I get cramps, no worries, I film them anyway, and I put all that video there. So that thing has over 2 terabytes of data. I tried to download it from Google, it was so big I couldn't even do it. But you can get lost in there for days and hours, and you can come out just this amazing person knowing all this stuff, because it's like you was there with me. I just stand there and film. I don't even edit. I mean, some of the newer films I'm putting out, I edit, I make them crisp, but you can get like the root, original natural farming stuff. So don't just trust me, go back, watch the video, see what I saw, go back to the beginning. And the last website up there is knffarm.com. That's the thing where I put my trainings up. So if you want to come to my farm, you want to get a full immersion, I put them there. Right now, there's none listed because I just kind of in transition with my farm, going back from, last year was hard. That's all I can say. So just trying to get the farm immersions back. So this page here I like show, this is the picture on I guess it's your right side with all the people. This is right here, this is my farm. You're looking down at, what we got. The sweet potatoes in the back is not mine, it's my neighbors. But the people in the front doing the hands-on work, we're making a fermented plant juice right there. We're making the KNF food. So everyone gets their hands dirty, gets full immersion. The lady with her hand in the air is because she went cut herself. That's how hands-on this stuff is. She went cut her hand with a knife, but lucky thing, I get you to sign a waiver before you come my farm. So easy for me. The smaller picture up top is an IMO pile. And I've been adapting this to locally available things. So that one is made from wood chips and dog food. So it's really a low cost way to make it. You can make it from all kinds of stuff. And I'll go a little bit into that today, but just, that pile, your hands on turning that thing. And so much we can what I've been doing lately is we sit inside and we put our feet in it. And it's so nice. It's this rejuvenating spa where you can feel the microbes. It's like relaxed. We talk story while we're sitting there, letting the microbes go into us and feeling their warmth and their love come into our bodies. And then on the bottom is just some of the people that's satisfied that came. People, you cannot stop them from smiling. People that even think they know what they're doing, they come, they're like, oh, bro, I learned so much even more. And it's so fun. I love the students. I get good relationship. One thing that's hard for me is I know so much people and I train so much people, it's hard to stay up with everybody. But that's why I like the monthly meeting. That's why I'm reaching out more to Zoom, trying to get in, trying to balance my load and trying to get more teachers involved and more people in the whole organization going, so that it's not just all this weight on my shoulders. It's like everyone can hunt a hole together, get them going. So, and then Brethren Bronson, he would come over. So this is him. We're just dropping him off in Waimea to fly Mokulele, go back Maui. And now he's running Five Sisters Farm. But Bronson had so much fun. He came over, he stayed, he camped up at my pig barn. And he was just fully immersed in the farm. He loved that IMO pile at 5 in the morning, because the chickens would wake him up and he was just turning that pile. He would turn it late at night. It was one of the best IMO piles I've seen because of his care and attention and just his willingness to go full into it and be on the land, and me helping him a little bit, giving him the pointers, showing him. But, natural farming can come learn from me. But the truth is, you gotta go home, you gotta practice. And that's what he's been doing. He texts me pictures all the time. He shows me, he's like, oh, turning IMO. Oh, he's making ferments. He's doing all these things. And that's what makes you a good natural farmer. So I invite you come learn, but go learn with Bronson. He took my teacher training. He knows what's up. He can teach this. He's on good guy. And then the beautiful woman in the middle, they say behind every good man is a woman who really does all the work. And so that one in the middle, that's Susanna, that's my fiance. And she and I is one core team. I couldn't farm without her because I just do too much. And me and her, we get down, we farm, we love the land. And it's just amazing. So trying to build a team. So, but enough about me. Let's get into the teachers, my masters, the people that showed me what's up. And I built this slide. I have, I just made this presentation today because they paid me a little bit to do some prep work. So I figure instead of just saying, oh, I did work and getting paid for nothing, I actually gonna do some work. So put in 2 hours of building this presentation for you today. And I know you guys were reading the Young Song book, and I love that guy. He stayed in my house right in this place I am right now. He stayed in this place for 1 month and he lived with me. He taught me all these recipes. He showed me how to do the pesticides. He showed me how to do the microbes. I helped him go, we went Maui with Uncle Alika and Brian guys. And we did a huge workshop over there. I think right there. I don't know Maui too well, but it's just Mauka, the airport, take one left. It's, I don't know. Sorry, I don't know the towns. I don't like speak wrong, but it's the place where I get all the rainbows on the mountain. And it's like one field. It's cherry. But we threw this. What's it called?
Sky Haiku.
Oh yeah. That's the one. That's the one. Just over there, Haiku. They got one farm. Had all kind of plastic in the soil. Yeah, that's the spot. Used to do pineapples. I think. I was like tripping on the plastic in the soil. I was like, how's these guys? But I put this slide up just as a juxtaposition, just to let you know. So basically I get, I get many senseis, many kumu, many sources, but for me, Master Cho is like the main guy and then his son, Yang Song Cho. So they get two different systems. One is kind of called Cho Global, but it's not as organized and it's a little bit harder to get into. And the other is called Jadam. And if you look down those lists, you can kind of see the difference. So, Master Cho is almost, he's like 85, if not even more. He's an old guy. And his son is about 40 to 50. He's on Dragon. So probably about 55-ish, right around that age. And they used to spar with each other. They used to work together. Then they had one family drama, like Korean style. If you ever watch the soap opera, they would split apart. And then on one trip, Dr. Park, my mentor, he would unite the family. So now they're back together. And it's really a good thing because they're strong together. But when you get into it, Master Cho's methods is super complex. It's like so much precision, this, that, it's like, how do I do this? It's like, oh, a little bit sugar gonna make one huge difference versus Young Song and Jadam, bro, you cannot mess it up. Just go for them. It's just throwing stuff in a bucket, let them rot, he go. So it's real easy to do the Young Song method. But if you do Master Cho's, it's like when you see the effectiveness down below, it's like one Ferrari versus one Toyota. You get, it's like one is one precision machine, the other is like one workhorse. You get one Tacoma, he go, right? But when, imagine one Ferrari Tacoma, where it's like precise and you can burn out and you can impress, you can get all the ladies gonna look at you or the men gonna look at you and you drive by in the car, they're gonna be like, oh, how's that one? Versus you just, but so anyway. And one of the other main differences is that Master Cho get plenty books, but it's hard to read. It's all Kringlish versus Young Song, the book you got, the Jadam book, that thing is well written, yeah? No one had problems with that yet, yeah? It's easy. If you read that thing, it's simple. If you read the book, you get them. The other difference, the last one, is Master Cho's stuff is edible. Young Song's is not. Do not eat Young Song's stuff. Oh, talk about, do not even get it in your eye. I've been spraying it, wake up the next morning, almost get pink eye, the thing all sealed shut. Watch out. It's good, but it's not human compatible like Master Cho's is. Master Cho's, you just spray them in your mouth. You get thirsty while you're out there, you cool off, spraying them on top yourself. It's easy, it's good. That's why I like that one. So that's where I'm coming from. So what I'm going to talk about tonight mostly is Master Cho solutions. So I like to draw. Most of the stuff you can see from here on out is my drawings. It's kind of elementary school, but I get one Galaxy Note 9, so I get to draw on top. It's pretty fun. So this is the 9 core solutions. Is there more solutions than 9? Yes. Can you farm with more? Yes. Can you farm with less than this? Maybe. If you have these 9, you will solve every problem, no problem. You can get more specialized, you can get more stuff, but just with these 9, it's enough tools. It's like having a hammer and a saw and what you need to do basic carpentry. Can you get one beam saw? Can you get one table saw? Yeah. But if you don't have one skill saw and one hammer, you cannot do it. Yeah. So this is the 9 solutions. This is the core tools that you need. So try read through them real fast, and you can see the bold words on there are the names that I gave them. Other people may call them that, but I gave them to them because I like making it easy. All these names, when you read them, you already know how to use them. Yeah. Versus the one in parentheses is the acronym. Okay. So if you're talking with an older natural farmer, you're talking with someone shorthand, they're probably going to say IMO, LAB, FPJ. They're probably going to talk in that language because sometimes it's hard to say all the other stuff. And then the word to the right of the acronym is just what it means. But the way these things were named originally was how they were made. And so guys learn how to make the stuff. They make them real good. And then I talk to them and they're like, yeah, but I never use them. It's like, what good is it to make, like you go buy one nice hammer from, I don't know, what is your local hardware store, but you buy one nice hammer, but then you leave them on the shelf. It's like, if you buy one nice hammer, it's like, what did you make with that? Yeah. And if you don't know how to use the hammer, then no good, right? So the names I chose all in bold is ones that's real easy for anybody to know. Who knows when you use medicine? I just going to facetiously talk because I asking questions, but since I cannot hear from everybody and if everyone answers at the same time, it'll be hard. But I just going to say, you use medicine when you're sick, right? When you eat food. All the time, right? All the time. And you don't eat choke food, you eat just enough, and you eat the good food, and you eat the right kind for the right time for the right thing, right? When you need structure. All the time, right? You guys in structures right now, except for Bronson, he lives outside. He's a wild man. But you need one structure. You need all these things, yeah? So if you look at this list and you can read through that, this is the sheet, this sheet on the right was, or I guess it's your right, yeah, is the one I was going to send to you guys. It's this list. You can print them out. You can have them. You can have one reference. That way you know the tools. You can share them with your friends. This one, open source, share them, get them out there. The more people that realize this thing is simple, easy, and intuitive, the more it's going to spread. So I learned them from Master Cho, but the key is, you see that one that looks like the last airbender, or it's the U-down symbol, it depends where you're from. But he get the elements around him, yeah? He get the fire, the water, the wind, and the earth. It's the whole key between all these. It's not to juice your plants. It's not to slam. It's not to feed them too much. It's to bring them into balance. When you get one balanced plant, that thing can blow your mind how good it's going to grow. And so by learning this, you can turn from a neutral microbe into a heavenly microbe, where you can just, boom, slam them and get these tools, bring your plants into balance, and nothing can stop you. The plant's going to outperform way better than you ever knew. So let's go a little bit into those 9 solutions. The first 2 on the list are the IMO, which is just your microbes, your general forest fungal microbes. And the second one is the police. Okay. So the key to this is that on the right, it says diversity. The best thing you want to bring into your land is diversity. And it's diversity of microbes. And it's not just any kind, it's the diversity from what's already right there. So what we're doing with the IMOs is we're going to the area that's the richest place on your land, and you're setting out a starchy substance, which I'll get it more into this a little bit later, but you're collecting the best microbes on a starch, yeah? Because it's just like rice. You put out rice, everyone like them, yeah? Everyone at the potluck loads rice on the plant, or on the plate, unless you get kalo and sweet potato, but stay at those are starches, yeah? So people gonna load the starch, yeah? And then they're gonna mix with the other food while they're eating. But that's the main thing, that the starch is for the diversity. You get everybody, everyone is stoked with that starch. So you capture these guys with the starch, and then you go through a series of propagating them. Just like you send elementary school, middle school, high school, university, graduate school, space alien education. You send them through all those levels before you bring them back, send them to work, yeah? So it's just like that. It's a pretty complex process, but the whole key is you're grabbing what's there and you're educating it. You're not trying to bring in foreigners or this other stuff. You're trying to take what's right here, educate them better, then put them back into the land, and they're gonna know how to manage the resources right. They're gonna know everything. And when they get this other education, they're just gonna be better at it, yeah? And so how you educate them is you feed them. You feed them real good, and you lower their stress. And when you do that, it comes self-education. You're fed well, you have no stress, right? You can learn all kinds of stuff. You can have time to read books. You can have time to sit down with people, teach them. It's just like our culture, you know, same thing. And so this is the microbes is just like us, okay? So number 2 up there is the police. And I put the police, but the police was less popular this last year, but you kind of got to understand it's good police. And in every place, it's not necessarily like the police, like, you know, like, what is it? What you say before the police? Well, I don't know if anyone's a police officer, but there's one word that goes before, it starts with an F, something like that, yeah? I don't know, but what this is if there's the law enforcement, even in a good community, you got to have some people that enforces the rules, yeah? And it's just like your hospital people, your you know, the National Guard when they come in when it's good. I don't know, people get different kind of things. Or the police when you need them, like to get rid of the criminals. And so you don't want the whole town to be the police. You want them to be a supplementary force. So that's why we separate out the lactobacillus from the indigenous microbes. And about 30% should be emergency workers, like helping like nurses, doctors, the police, these things. I might rename it for the police because it's getting a less good reputation as of late, yeah. But the general concept in your mind should be that you're getting the law enforcement, the helpers, the guys that help out, yeah. And so you got to have enough of those guys. So it's 2 distinct microbes. You know, like put all the police, and then you know, like the microbes not have enough police because then chaos can come. Yeah, it's so imbalance. And so using these 2 microbes in the right ratios, the right proportions, the right times, you're going to get all those microbes to balance out. So you get this diversity, and then you help them keep law, like structure, like even like kapu, like the rules, you know, like, because if you fish the wrong time, you can kill the fish. So you got to uphold kapu and all this stuff. You know, it's like every culture get that. But that's what these 2 guys do. So that's why I put them first on the list, because it's kind of the most important for farming. It's kind of what sets Korean natural farming apart. The police is really like the EM though. So if anyone out there is an EM farmer, effective microbes, efficient microbes, you are using the police. So if you're just using that one, you might want to look into the Korean natural farming of using number 1, which is your indigenous microbes. Okay. So that's of the first core 9 solutions, that's the first 2. Those are the first 2 that are alive, living, and you really got to take care of them, just like one baby. The next 4 are the basis of, if you cannot bring the microbes in, you can do it a second way by bringing in good food. Because if you just feed it good food, then you can get good microbes. Or if you bring in good microbes, then you also got to feed them. So you cannot do it without these next ones, which the first one up there, number 3, is food, which is made by fermenting plant juice. And Master Cho, when he teaches this, what he says in Korean is it's called green juice from heaven. And he also says in his book that this is the king of all medicines, meaning that if you got good food, you don't need the other kind of medicine. You get good food, you get happy, you're healthy, you get all this kind of stuff. Maybe the other kind of medicine, but hey, but all this stuff is, so you make a fermented plant juice. Then once you eat, you got to go number 2 or number 1, right? And so the plants get rid of that by having a cleanser. And what that is a vinegar. And what it helps to do is just like a vinegar can clean your countertop, a vinegar can also work to clean your inside cells. If you ever heard of drinking brown or apple cider vinegar in the morning to like alkalize your body and flush out kind of toxins and stuff, it's very similar to that concept. So when you put up food, you balance it with an equal part of a cleanser, which is a vinegar. And it's real easy to make the vinegar. And so those two work with each other, the food, the cleanser. Also, it helps clean off. You get any like sooty mold, anything like that growing on the outside, you put this cleanser and it helps make the thicker wax layer on top of the skin of the plant. And so vinegar has a whole bunch of work or of things it can do for you. But I just think of it real simple as a food and then the cleanser. Then the next one coming down, number 5, is what I call medicine. But you can also think of this as herbs. Like you make shoyu chicken, you gotta throw enough ginger, yeah? Enough garlic inside. But if you just put too much ginger, too much garlic, the thing not gonna taste good, yeah? So this one, number 5, is just a subtle amount of herbs. And when you look at it, it's like 4 milliliters per gallon, which I'll get to the dilutions in right after this. But it's just the minutest amount going into a gallon, so it's diluted. But what this helps is get rid of any mold, because ginger, garlic, angelica, licorice, cinnamon, those are the 5 components of it. All those things help digestion, help reproduction, but they're also anti-pathogenic. So if you have any molds or anything attacking your plant, and also those herbs raises the immune system and the metabolism of your plant so it can fight off that stuff more natural. So you throw a little bit in there, it helps out. And then the 6th one up here is on structure. And what this is calcium phosphate. And what that helps to do is to build the structure. Calcium phosphate is what builds your bones. So this same thing, you char the bones and then you put it into the plant, and then a plant where it would just be weak and falling over, it gets the structure inside. The calcium helps it transport, the phosphorus helps it build not only good, strong body, but also phosphorus is really good for building strong roots. So on a chemical level, you can start to think of it that way too, that this calcium phosphate builds it up. But I like to think of these 4 as like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need this stuff for life. You need to eat. If you don't eat, you can die. If you don't clean your house, you can die. If you don't have regular access to medical care, you can die. And if you know more one structure, one house, you're probably gonna die too, unless you're real hardcore, but you know. So all these 4 things are what makes up the maintenance formula. So if you see that the jar on the right that's glowing, all these are what I use all the time. It's the common denominator. It's the basis. You put this out, no matter what you're doing, your plant can get more healthy, can come more into balance. It will give it the strength it needs to then start finding the micronutrients that it needs and the other things. And this is the basis because they're all coming from whole plants and how they're extracted. You're getting the whole thing. You're not just getting one slice or one element, getting the whole thing in balance, the way it came out of the plant, and you're transferring this to another plant. And so this is the way that natural farming works with the maintenance solution to get these things out. So starting to make sense, real kind of simple, real basic here.
Yeah. Are you applying these to your your garden like as a sprayer and your drip line, or?
So I know you like jump to questions yet, but hang on, we get there. 3 more solutions before we get to how I'm gonna apply them, okay? Can hang with me, I get you. Guarantee I should have put an outline in the beginning so you knew where we were going, so I could tell you, then tell you, then tell you what I told you, yeah? Gee, but, oh well. The 3 last ones are the ones that are kind of supplementary. These aren't used all the time. These are used based on your growth cycle. So say I got little seedlings and I want them to grow real fast. Well, it's just like lighting on fire. If you throw some lighter fluid, some gasoline, although don't throw too much gasoline. I lit myself on fire one time, it was gnarly. But little bit lighter fluid, you can light things up. And this is what the fuel is. It's when you want it to expand, you want to see the leaves get big real fast, you throw fuel. But it can be problematic though if you throw too much fuel, because then it can overgrow and burn and destroy your plants. So you got to be real light on the fish amino acid. But basically it gives a bunch of aminos so the plant can assemble DNA faster and it goes. So it's real important, the fuel, in the beginning start phase of plants when they can't make their own aminos. The next one, number 8, is the reproduction, which the reproduction helps when your plant is starting to set fruit. So what it has is the calcium in there. And what calcium does is it transports nutrients to the fruit. So sometimes your plant can have enough nutrients, but it cannot get it up to the fruit. It cannot get it to where it needs to go. And this is what the reproduction helps with. That's what makes your fruit super sweet, is in combination of number 8 and number 9, which is the reproduction plus the minerals. So the minerals is just diluted seawater. And what that has is a balance of every single element. So say I'm missing some cobalt for some reason. There's no cobalt in my soil. If I go get seawater and I dilute it, guarantee there's cobalt in there because it's in the ocean and it's not out of balance. It's not too much cobalt like you can die from radiation. It's just enough cobalt that can get it into your plant. There's even gold in the ocean. There's every single element in the ocean, but it's all bound up with each other. But when you dilute that, it comes apart and it doesn't cause salinity problems because you're diluting it 1 to 30. So you're getting the nutrients, the minerals, but you're not causing salinity. The key is dilution, you know? And for me here on the east side, I get so much rain, but even on the west side where it's more dry, no worries. As long as you dilute 1 to 30, you're not gonna overdose. So just a quick review, all the 9 solutions coming through. Got the microbes, got the police, you got the food, the cleanser, the medicine, the structure, fuel, reproduction, and minerals. So all these combined is pretty much gonna take care of everything you need for your plant. And if you think of it, it's almost the same for what we need, yeah? Same things. And the best thing I was telling you is it's edible. I drink this all the time. I make myself my own doses and I drink it. But how you use it for the plant is a little bit more specialized. And there are these formulas right here. There's 7 of them, 7 prescriptions. And you notice they're different phases. So in the beginning, you're starting your soil prep, you use the soil formula. Then you're soaking your seeds to get them to sprout, use the seed formula. Also, you can use the seed formula for one transplant. So you soak them between transplant, you soak them in this, then you put them in the ground. Then you get the maintenance formula, which is the one, if you don't know what to do, just use that one. It's easy. It's easy for everybody. Then the next 3 is different phases of growth that kind of cycle with each other, depending. So you get the leaf, the bloom, and the fruit. And the last one is just used in the very last bit, is to make your fruit even more sweet, or whatever you're growing more sweet. It's the last harvest formula. And that one is a little bit unbalanced, and its whole reason is to stress the plant a little bit at the end and give it exactly what it needs right at the end. So all these comes on one simple app. So I told you I'm a computer programmer, so I wrote this app here where you can just put into the thing. You can say, oh, I want to make up, you know, like a 2-gallon sprayer. So you put in the amount you want, 2 gallons, hit calculate, boom. right here, it gave you all the outputs of exactly how much you should add and how much formula you need. And if you buy it, it supports me. It's on the iOS and Android stores. You can just look it up. It's called KNF Solution App. And I wrote that thing just to make it easy because I do this all the time. I'm like, how much I need? I don't know. So I made that. But next page right here, this is how you use them. And so this chart on the right is the one I'm going to give you guys in one PDF so you can look at it. So you get the guide, you can print them, you know exactly what to do. But this is the breakdown. So if you see the columns going across, that's like the first 4 is in the maintenance solution. The next one down has all those things at those different dilutions, and they have all those things in there, okay? So in general, you can look at that, you can see that's just a straight up like shotgun kind formula. Like if you use it, you can work it, it's gonna be fine. However, you can get more precise, especially as you start to know your plants better, as you start to know your solutions better, you can get way more akamai. You can tune it in, you can get it exactly the way you like. But for now, teaching this way, just consider it, that's how it is. If you see the thing to the left side where it's kind of growing across and it has this thing where it says, you know, here's a 12-week crop coming in. It shows you basically every other week, you're going to start with your soil foundation, you go seed soak, then you're going to oscillate between the leaf and the fruit solution. So it's maybe a little bit counterintuitive. You think the fruit would come later, but this by far is the most complex part of natural farming. When I go to study, this is what I go study and learn this more. I can teach you a lot more if I get more time than just right here in this class. But basically you're oscillating between these formulas. And if you see the formulas up above corresponds with that black outline table there of, you'll notice your plant will get a little bit chubby when it's putting out leaves, and then boom, it gets skinny when the thing stands up, and it gets chubby and it gets skinny. And you can watch every single plant would follow that same formula. And then different plants go through the puberty at different times. You know how when you get when ladies get puberty, they get cramps. Not always, yeah, but that's why for the most important phase for the plant is the puberty spray. So it's about 1/3 of your crop just in general. And that's when if you apply that puberty spray there, you can mitigate that cramps and that menstruation type of thing that occurs in your plant. People don't often think of that. They don't think of a plant as menstruating now. You think of it just like, oh, it just grows, and you don't think of that, but it does. And this can really help. Same thing, you can use this for animals too. But if there's one time you did spray, like you got a huge fruit tree orchard, the best time you can spray it is right before it's starting to flower, and spraying it with that bloom spray and help it through, because then it'll transition from growing leaves to switching to fruits, and you help it through that puberty phase that it goes through. But in general, it's always going through this chubby skinny, which is what the point number 2 in the bottom middle shows. It's always going through this chubby skinny balance. And then the other big phase is that if you look at that graph, the black outline place, it's divided into 3 spots. And those are that you have childhood, you have a teenager when you're going through puberty, and then you have an adult. And those are the 3 phases. And so you can start to tune your foods and your application to match that. And this is where you can get real precise in natural farming. In my case, where I get polyculture, I get all kinds of stuff at all the times, I use maintenance solution, and or I look at a general thing. Like right now, my lychees is flowering, my avocado is flowering, the tangelo, the citrus is flowering. So right now, I definitely gonna use one bloom formula, but usually I'm just looking and I'm seeing, okay, does it look like the plants is too chubby or too skinny? And then I'm balancing between that because I get polyculture. But if you're growing just one single crop, you can tune this down. You can build this chart for exactly your plant. And when I go to Korea, I see strawberries the size of my fist with no hole in the middle. The thing is just dense, juicy fruit because they're following this whole cycle. See, watermelons, tomatoes, everything, because these guys monocrop in greenhouses and they just slam. And they don't get monocropping issues because they're always putting the microbes back. So they bring in the diverse microbes and they can just continually monocrop, in greenhouse and no problems, and balancing these. So this slide right here is probably the most complex part of what I have, and something that requires more explanation. And maybe when we get to the questions, you can come back to this. But I want to answer the simple question that Odie asked, which is how much do I spray? And the general formula is about, it's only when you get to this kind of stuff you brain fart, I swear. No. In general, it is 25 gallons per acre. So what does that translate to? Just means like just a sweet mist. It doesn't mean I'm spraying enough that it's dripping off. It means that it's just misted. And if you can mist it on the bottom part of your leaves, even better. Now, if you cannot mist and you're going to go through the soil, because the plant can absorb easier through its leaves, you're more effective and you can use less if you're going to spray on the leaves. If you're going to go through the soil, the recommended application rate is 100 gallons per acre. So that's dripped into the soil, that's feeding the roots, that's feeding all your soil, and that's to get the same amount of nutrient uptake into your plants. Some things like calcium really benefit from being sprayed onto the leaf because it takes the plant a long time to bring calcium up from the soil into the plant leaf. So if you can spray it right on, you will have calcium reaction like that day. All the time people tell me, they're like, oh, I did this transplant soak and I thought this plant was dead. I put it in and within 15 minutes, the leaves stood up. People will tell me all the time, oh, I went in my nursery, like this girl I'm teaching right now, she's an Ava farmer. She went in her nursery, sprayed this maintenance formula the first time. And she said, you know what, the next day, all the plants usually is down, all of them standing up. They was already eating the sun much more, growing faster. So it's just a small dose. And yeah, so it's really light dilution. And you can do the math to calculate what that is down to down to smaller sizes. I'll leave that as an exercise for the user. I get charts and things, but if I try to read it off my head, I forget. So, but when I go out to spray, I spray just enough to mist. If I have a power sprayer or a hand pump sprayer, if my feet ever stop moving, I'm over spraying. So I just keep moving, keep going, keep spraying. And then everything's getting a light mist on top. And then everything the next day looks more shiny, more standing up, more better. And even the most dead plants, you can spray these solutions on and they'll come back. Root-bound plants, soak them inside, transplant them, they come back. Everything. It's incredible because you're giving the plant like what it needs, what it wants to eat. Okay, so I'm gonna switch gears a little bit. This one, I want to teach and tell you a little bit about the microbes. So not so much on the foods now, but on the story of the microbes. Because to me, this is one of the biggest paradigm shifting stories out there. Because it's always people ask, oh, anaerobic, aerobic, good microbes, bad microbes, good things in the soil, bad things in the soil. Well, what does that all mean? And so this story I can tell you, it's a tiny little drama, but it's the good versus the bad. And the basic gist here is that if you start taking care of your soil and you start feeding it regularly, no matter what, it's going to be good. Think of it, even you go to a prison, which is supposedly full of bad people, and you start feeding them real good, giving them good education, they're going to be nice. They're not, if you like people scrap, take the food away. Like imagine you go on potluck, you run out of food. Even the nicest guy, I lock you all in a room, take away the food. Even the nicest guy could scrap pretty soon, yeah? No matter how much medals you get or people like you, if you're hungry, you can scrap. So that's the main gist, is the food. But if your soil is good, your microbes is good. If they're well fed, they're good. Okay. So I like to introduce you to the 3 characters of my stupid little play. I don't have to say stupid. It's one intelligent little play that I drew up earlier. But the microbes play different roles because you are the director. You get to say what's going to happen, when, and how often you're going to spray and what you're going to do. So on the left, we got the good guys, and I just put one halo and one horns. It's not religious, it's not whatever. It's just in common like thing. You think, oh, good, bad. You know, it's not, by no means is this dogmatic. It's just representation of what I could draw. I have a real hard time drawing like good looking microbes because it's just one circle with eyes. So anyway, but in general, the good microbes are what we're gonna say deliver cookies and cakes to your plant. So they bring good stuff, like they feed the plant. They go out, they find minerals, and they bring it to your plant. And what I'm defining as good is it's not this one or that one. It's not by their name. It's not like this one is named Bob and he's always good. Bob could be bad if you starve him out. You know, Bob could, you know, so I don't care about names. I care about function and how they function in the soil. So the microbes that are functioning good are supplying what the plant needs to it. And that's why I say it's good. Okay, so they bring cakes and cookies, nutrients, minerals, all those things to the plants. The ones I'm saying are bad are the ones that bring drugs and alcohol. And you know, I like drugs and alcohol, so it's not every guy is bad. I'm not saying that either. But what I am saying is that when things start to go bad, like for instance, oxygen is cut off, there's things called ciliates, which when alcohol is produced, they start eating your roots. They start causing trouble in your soil. But it's not that they were bad. It's that the conditions that you as the director made then cause them to thrive. And then, you know, becomes like where instead of the people on the street is growing food and giving food out, now it's like the economy is so bad. So the only way you can make money is selling alcohol, selling, you know, drugs, those types of things where that's, you know, in a bad economy, that's what thrives, versus in a good economy, it's like, you know, productive things like you teaching kids, you're doing good. That's the kind of concept I'm trying to get here. That's why the good and the bad is in quotes. Yeah. Now, the most important guy is the guy on the far right, which is the neutral guy, because he just always does his business. He just does what he does. And he's not partisan. He does not this or that. He just, whoever's in charge, he works for him. So if the good is in charge, he does good. If the bad is in charge, he does bad. It's not that he does this or that. It's whoever is in his leadership, he does it. So whether he's good or he's bad is up to you as the director and who you're putting in the majority. So the storyline, like I was saying, is this one here. It's the good versus the evil. But in general, 50% of your soil is made up by the neutral microbes in the center. And I just made these numbers up. It's just a representation. Don't quote me. Don't say, oh, it's more like 30% or 80% or something. There's some number. The general idea here is to get you so you understand that concept. It's not so precise in terms of quantitative. But on the left, we got the quote unquote good guys that are 25%. And we got the bad guys on the right that is 25%. So what happens in our soil? This never happens. Never, never, ever, ever, ever. It's just one starting point for me to show you. There's always one good in majority or one bad in majority, okay? And the neutral guys, they're just in the middle, working, doing their thing, try not to get too bogged down with trouble. They're not on either side. They just go with the flow, okay? So like I said, today's mood for the neutral microbe is he's just chill. Whatever, he's just chill. And they prefer the cakes and cookies. They prefer to do this work a little bit, just a slight little bit, which is good for us because that means then that's why the earth comes more fertile. If you don't do nothing and you can make the environment rich, it will tend to get richer and better over time because they prefer to go the cakes and cookies method. But if you are tilling the soil or, for instance, burning fossil fuels, which is putting pollution all over the planet, not the carbon, but the pollution, then it's going to cause it to go degrade and go down. And the drugs and alcohol come in because they get depressed. Okay. So I kind of already explained this, but this is the plot twist. If you want it to go good, cakes and cookies. You want it to go bad, you destroy it, drugs and alcohol. So when your life seems evil or your soil seems bad, it's because it's neglected. And so I want you to see this graph down in the bottom. You saw how it went from 50% to the neutral microbes stayed 50%. But what happened when you disturbed it is you now put the bad guys in a majority. They became 30% instead of the 25. And now the good guys is still there, but they're only 25%. So what happens is 80% of the microbes in your soil becomes bad. So just by losing 5% difference of flip-flop from good to evil became 80% bad. You didn't just get 25, 30% bad. It went 80% bad like that because all the neutral guys, they immediately it's like they changed their sports team. You know, there's like San Francisco and then all of a sudden they just put on Denver and there was like, oh, like a switch overnight. You're like, oh, where'd all my fans go? It's like, no. So that's how fast it can change. And what happens is, you know, when it's quote unquote bad, those guys are doing good work, but they're bringing things that's not beneficial to your plant. So they're bringing, you know, alcohol to the plant and the plant is like, you know, its roots is withering and stuff. It's like, oh, cannot. It wants cakes and cookies. It wants nutrients. It wants minerals. But because the neutral microbes in the middle, they got all stressed, they accept the alcohol from their friends to just take the edge off, and then boom. Even though there's still some good guys, like the kind of the icon on the left, there's still good guys, but the soil becomes quote unquote evil and can seem bad, can seem wicked, and overnight can just go from good to bad. You're like, what happened? It's because you lost the majority there. So what you gotta do is you gotta feed the good microbes. They like cookies. They like this maintenance solution. They like these things, and they themselves don't have the power to do it. They just follow whoever's ever majority. So if you want them to get good, you got to introduce the good guys, and then they start to convert everyone else over. Yeah. So I kind of already talked about this, but the main thing is life becomes peaceful when it's nourished. Meaning that if you start to feed your soil and think about feeding the life in there, it's just going to become peaceful and more balanced just on its own. And this next part is, again, what I was talking about. Your influence is only 5%. So if you start to fight the bad guys per se, say you have Phytophthora, yeah, that's a really well-known root-eating disease that caused the leaves to drop off, and people will say, you have Phytophthora, you got to destroy the Phytophthora with this type poison or try mitigate it or try do something. If you start fighting the bad guys, because they only had this 5% difference of good, you're going to end up, most cases, not always, I'm not going to say this is always, you might be able to fight the bad guys and fight them well, but most likely you're going to get worse. You start fighting the bad, you can get worse and worse and worse because you're fighting the bad. Versus if you start feeding the good and you start reinforcing the good, so feeding them the foods they like, but also going and cultivating good beneficial microbes, feeding them, growing them up, putting them back in the environment, now you can go good. And so what is a better solution than fighting the bad? This is what I talk about, yeah? So a picture of me talking about microbes. So I'm talking about right now is, and then that's me at the bottom spraying a little bit of the police and a little bit of the food. And now all of a sudden, They're becoming good. They're talking about peace. They're growing. And the icon that was up in the upper right, where the bad guys had the majority and 80% was bad, now it becomes like the image on the bottom, where all of a sudden overnight, by just introducing a little bit of microbes, all of a sudden 80% becomes good. And this is one of the biggest things for me to learn, is that I didn't need to fight the bad. And furthermore, you don't need to purge every bad one out. You don't need to look and say, oh, I got a little bit of Phytophthora, so I need to nuke it. No, you can have a little bit of Phytophthora, as long as you got enough good guys and the 80% neutral becomes good. As long as it doesn't get out of balance and out of control, 80% of your microbes is good. So this was a huge lesson for me, to stop trying to kill the bad or eliminate it or vanquish evil, but instead just let evil go and focus on the good. Start building the good, start feeding the things you want, start focusing your energy where you want it to grow and where you want it to go. And all of a sudden the 80% becomes good. So not only is this a lesson on the soil, it's also like one philosophical lesson, one life lesson. And that's what I love about natural farming, is that you start to get into this. And like I said, I studied computer science, but the more I study nature, the more I realize there's so much more to be taught and to learn. And if you want to write good computer programs, go study the nature, go study how the microbes is doing it. And you can write way better software and code. Instead of trying to go and fight the evil or do that, it's like, just feed the good, feed what's good. And you can come around and build the right things. So to kind of recap, the well-fed win, meaning that what makes the things bad is soil disturbance or trying to till or trying to over chemicalize or do these other things. But if you're just feeding these natural foods that is down here on the bottom, the medicine, the structure, the food, the reproduction, the fuel, the microbes, the police, the good IMO and the right balance, you will get this stuff to come back. And instead of trying to fight the bad, it comes back and you can get these neutral microbes to go. And it's only a 5% difference. You don't have to change 100% of the microbes in your soil. You only have to introduce like 2 or 3% good microbes. And all of a sudden 80% comes around and comes back. So the neutral, they go both ways. Don't try fight the neutral microbes. Don't even try learn about them. Try learn about the beneficials, try increase their population, try train them better, try feed them better, and they will go and recruit and train all the other microbes for you. And now you as the farmer get one less thing to worry about. So you can go home, cook me lau lau, send them FedEx right over my address, PO Box 59, Papaico, and no worries. Nah, April Fools. Okay. So the thing come down to this, that it's not about, for me, it's not about knowing all this stuff in natural farming or about the soil chemistry and all this stuff. It's nice to know. It's great to know. And I'm not saying don't learn it, but it's really, I try to make it about the basics. It's, if I can't imagine it for me and I can't teach it to a 6th grader, then what we gonna do, right? And so it's about these basic recipes, about this basic understanding of feeding the soil, that your plants menstruate, that carbon makes a buffer just like YouTube before it loads. And if it runs out, you're done. Like all these type of concepts are the things that I try to learn, try to understand, try to put in simple terms that we can communicate. And if you look at the bottom there, it's like a picture of me talking about microbes, making the right things. Then I put the microbes in with my pigs, my sugar, all those things. And then pretty soon I get the picture on the right, which is where the water is clean again. Like, wouldn't it be nice to go swim? You know where Vince goes under that waterfall? I don't know if you guys follow his Instagram. I quit all social media, so I don't do it anymore. But it's Eau Valley, yeah? He's under there. Imagine you could just drink all the water and not even worry about pathogens. And what it is if you get enough balance, you bring these microbes back to life. I don't know if you can drink the water, and probably it's pretty untouched, but you can. Okay. But imagine you could drink the bay water in Wailua, or wait, no, where's the place where Costco is?
Kailua. Oh,
Kailua.
oh, Kahului.
Kahului. Imagine you could drink the water flowing in Kahului, like the water that comes out of the A and B fields or Mahipono now. Imagine you could drink that. You could, if you put enough microbes, if they balance the other things, if they bring it all back into the land. And that's the thing is, today, you know, we're facing water shortages, we're facing fresh air shortages, where forests everywhere are dying, you know, get rapid ohia coming, all these problems. But what it is the microbes underneath is dying. The bad ones is getting out of control. And what they're trying to do is just protect. And so if we start to feed the earth, we start to increase the population of good ones, pretty soon you could go drink any puddle water. You could, you know, just any of that. You can drink it, you can eat it. All that comes back to life. So that's why I try to do what I do, share people the book, everything, so they can learn, because you can only make a tiny difference. That's one funny joke if you get it around, because it matters about your microbes. Yeah, everyone wants to make this huge difference, wants to do all this stuff, but the truth is, it's this small minutia. They're all around you. They're on your skin. They're in your guts. You know, your health starts in your gut, and that's where all your microbes lay. So I believe, I'm gonna make one strong statement here, and this is the thing I like get to Paul Stamets. Last time he was on HFUU, got to be able to talk to him about KNF to get his fungal things going, because he's doing these things and now he's open to it and understanding. And it's like, I believe microbes can end climate change, because it's about pollution. There's pollution everywhere. And the microbes can tie up that stuff. They can tie up carbon into your soil. That carbon then acts as a buffer to suck up all these toxins and store it. Then the microbes can transport it in the correct ratios to plants, which then solar panels, and then further powers this whole system by releasing sugars as exudates to feed this microbiome. So if you start to regrow your microbes, you start this positive feedback loop towards healing. The soil gets better, it gets less toxic, the plants grow better, they can suck more energy, put more energy into the ground. When trees grow, they get more transpiration, which helps cool the planet. The microbes are also very interested in keeping homeostasis. So when they talk about climate change, it's changing, right? That's because the microbes is dead. If the microbes is dead, then it's going to change. If the microbes is there, they're going to keep it stable. Their whole thing is to make it stable for life. So it's really the choice in the bottom left, whether you can go towards the desert or you can go towards the forest. And what it matters is, you know, whether you neglect your IMOs and you kill them, or you respect them and you head towards goodness, you know. And these guys are more than willing to work for us. They work 24 hours a day, even 25 hours a day, maybe, I don't know. And they're working constantly. You don't gotta pay them very much, just a little bit of sugar, little bit of fermented plant juice, little bit of medicine, little bit of structure, little bit of cleanser. It's easy to make. You can make it at home. Bronson gonna show you guys how, or at least you can taste them with him. I don't want to promise too much from Bronson, but he can show you how if you go learn with him, guarantee. And this solution, then not only do we stop climate change by changing it, we also feed our growing population, because more people could need more food, could need more richer soil. All this is all interrelated. And it's not that we have overpopulation, too much people. It's too much people that doesn't understand how to feed the microbiome, how to bring this life back in, how to make the soil rich once we've destroyed it, how to make clean water from just a river. And it's all, the secret is in the microbes, yeah? And they want to work for us. They want to help make it better, but we just need to give them a little bit better leadership in the soil. So if you see on there, it says it's a media war. And I believe it's about this idea. If we can get people to understand this secret society that's under us, that's all around us, that we breathe microbes in the air, and we can partner with them to make things better, then, you know, we're gonna thrive. There's nothing that can stop us from being just amazing humans for at least the next 200 years. until we forget again, and then we go back to where we're at. But anyway, that's one of my major messages tonight, is that the microbes can help us and we can really thrive in this planet. And you can make a difference just spraying your yard, your neighbor's yard, even if you're not growing stuff. I think one of the major impediments is calling it Korean natural farming, because most people, they don't care about Korea. Some people do. Most people, they don't like natural stuff because, it's just like a too used word. And most people's not farmers. So when I'm talking about all this stuff, it's solutions for the world, for climate change, for everything. But it's not just Korean natural farming. But if you do this, because you guys are fam apprentices, you guys can be unreal growing crops. People is gonna look at you and be like, oh, I like do that one. I like be like that person. Look how healthy they are. Look how good their soil is. Look how clean their water is. All this stuff, it comes from this. So one thing you gotta remember is you yourself, your DNA is only 10% human. 90% of the DNA in your body belongs to the microbes. So if you forget about these guys and you think, oh, just human, you're forgetting about 90% of the things living inside of you. All in your gut, all on your skin, all throughout you, in your blood, in your bones. You're a living mech warrior, which I kind of think of a better way to think of that, for the microbes. My human cells are huge. They're huge. So I look human. My microbe cells are tiny, but I'm 90% microbes. If you start laying in these microbes, you start letting them grow on you, you start letting them come into your body, they will enhance and ease up the work that your human cells have to do. People that get into Korean natural farming look younger. Not only that, it can fully integrate livestock back into our lives. We can get chickens back where there's no smell. So fresh eggs, fresh chicken meat. Can bring pigs right outside your bedroom door. So boom, all your garbage problem is gone. Feed them to the pigs. All this stuff, it is the foundation. The Hawaiian system used to be known as the Ahupua'a, the marketplace of the pig. Why? Because when they came to Hawaii Island, there was so much pigs and they were all kept with this same microorganism way of keeping the pigs. The Hawaiians were known for pigs. That's why they had the whole ulu belt. It was more ulu than anyone could eat. Why? Because they had the pigs. And they had I believe, they had the Korean natural farming technology because it wasn't pilau. People said Hawaii was the most beautiful permaculture place they had ever seen when they first came and they started writing this stuff down. And I want to see Hawaii return like that, where we can grow sugar in one pono way, where that can be the basis of our exports, where we can grow pork that makes you more healthy because the thing is healthy. And it all comes from partnering with our secret society. So I'm gonna go, after I'm done ranting like that, you guys enjoyed that, hopefully. It is April Fool's too, so anything I say that's too wild, just, yeah, it's a joke. But I wanna go a little bit into the two types of microbes. In fact, I can get into three, but the two ways to grow IMO, this is because you guys have the Jadam book. And I just want to go over this quick of just comparing the two first. You guys can read this. But basically, there's a super easy way, and that's Jadam, and I call it cheap and dirty IMO. It acts as more of a prebiotic to feed the soil than growing your actual indigenous biology to live in the soil. But it's super quick to make. The Jadam method is ready in 24 to 72 hours, and it's real easy. It's hard to go wrong. You do it, follow the recipe in the book, you'll nail it. Master Cho's IMO on the right there is the best, but it's not always the easiest. It's a very precise, very complex process that takes many weeks. That's like, you gotta watch it like a baby. If I walk away from my IMO for more than a day, it's gonna overheat and I'm gonna end up growing junk microbes that's no good. It's very precise because you're dealing with the indigenous population that you're growing them. And if you let it go, it rises up to this higher, like rave party kind microbe that people that take my classes, or I'll talk about the rave kids, nothing against them, but it's like, they're going to be doing ecstasy and they're going to be doing much for your farm the next day. And no offense against that. Everyone likes to roll once in a while. But anyway, so there's one very big difference between the two. One is slam bam easy, the other is very precise. But the feedback you get from it, when you do Master Cho's IMOs the right way, you can almost bring things back from the dead. You bring these microbes in, your plants will respond so well. Trust me, it is worth the effort. It's worth the time, and do it at least once, because at least you can get good foot bath for yourself while you do it. We now call it a foot spa. It's kind of coining a new word. So the first one, this is going to be 3 pages because here's the overview, and then we can go a little bit deeper. So this is the recipe. You guys have this in the Jadam book. He calls it JMS, Jadam Microbe Solution. I just called it disgustingly cheap microbes because it's pretty disgusting and it's pretty cheap. And if you get this stuff in your eye, like I said earlier, it'll cause pink eye. Like I work with a lot of cannabis growers in the mainland. If they spray this on their plants, they will fail their biologicals. What this is best for is doing early soil drench. What this is best for is spraying land that's not yours, that you like be one renegade farmer and you like bring all Maui back to life. So you go cruise the Hana Highway with a tank, just spraying the roadside with all the good microbes you made from there. Boom, all of a sudden, it's not going to be as dry that side. It's going to come nice, the whole thing and go. Like this is when I drive around the Big Island, I have a sprayer in my car and this is what I'm spraying. So it's real easy. It just takes water, some microbes that you just grab from the dirt, which you can see in your book a lot better than I can show here. Some food, which is the boiled potato or starch, and some sea salt. Those things, you mash them all together. What I do, I just put them, not the microbes, but I put all the rest of the stuff in a blender, the salt and the food, blend it real light, and then pour it into the water. You ferment this 24 to 40 hours, sometimes 72, depends how high you are up Kuloe. If you're a polyalkali site, it'll take probably 72 hours. If you're down in the plains, it'll be real quick. McKenna, you're up Mauka, yeah. So it could take longer for you. But you ferment this, then dilute it, especially the drier your area is, dilute it 1 to 10 and use it immediately. Do not try to store this. It will get real pilau and not good. But this is the basic recipe. The next one, once you mash this stuff together, shows how it'll look in a bucket, okay? So the bottom thing you're looking at, those circles with the rings forming in them, is what it looks like in your bucket. First you put it in, no bubbles. Then you start to see bubbles rising, forming rings. Then rings go to a peak. The rings should be just out from the edge, and then eventually it'll collapse. What that's related to is the graph above, which is showing in the beginning, you have a little bit more worker microbes than fertilizer microbes. Then the worker microbes take off faster because they go to work, they're more strong. But then the fertilizer microbes are slower. If you harvest them at that peak where your rings are at a peak, you will get majority good microbes, which is kind of in that bluer box. I think it's blue, I'm colorblind, so it's hard for me, but I think it's the bluer box, yeah. So it means use it within 24 to 36 hours. Use it because you get good microbes with kind of a sweeter smell. However, if you continue to let this go, what happens is you get a bunch of fertilizer microbes, which means that there's still life in there, but they're not going to go and build your soil. They're more like you're going to put it out and it's like dead bodies that the soil, it's microbes that are living there will eat them. And so you get real stink pilau smell, but it's still useful as a fertilizer. So if you want to grow microbes in your soil, start fermenting those materials and pull it early. Dilute it, spray it out there, use it, drench it, put it everywhere. I think it was a 50-gallon recipe, but it's the 2 pages combined. If you just want to feed your microbes, then put out the fertilizer microbes, and they act as a food source. Okay. And this thing can go indefinite. It'll continue to go. You can let this thing sit for months, but it won't be worker microbes unless you get it in that first early window. The longer you let it go, the more it turns to just fertilizer, the more it starts to break down, it becomes like putrefied. And it's real interesting to get into the science of this stuff. But that is the basic general recipe. So I can go back 2 pages just to show. Again, on the right side is this recipe. It's in the Jadam book. This is the one you guys see. Follow his recipes. He even has better pictures. This was just, how can I take this information and put it on one sheet so I can spread this to more people. Yeah, it's the same recipe. So the next one I like to get into is Master Cho's recipe. So this is the second one, and it's way more complex, because what you do is you go to your forest and you dig into the ground. So you can see this box on the left side here. This is where there's starch and airspace of rice or kalo or ulu or sweet potato that's been hard cooked in there. And you put it with an airspace, and you create this little microcosm where when you dig down into the good soil, all those microbes go up into your starch. And you put a cocoon on top, and all the microbes go in, and you can collect really good, diverse microbes. But this takes between 3 to 7 days. And when you get a good collection, it looks like the picture down there on the bottom right, where it says correct. You see how it's all nice and spiderweb, like mycelia looking? Now, I can tell you it's a common mistake to think that the microbes you see there are the ones you want. They're not. They're very common microbes, but they only show up like that when the very good soil microbes you want are there. And not to say they only show up, but they will show up if you got good soil microbes. You're not after the white cotton candy stuff. It's just an indicator that if you follow this first process, that the good guys you do want will be there. Okay. So step 1 is you put your starch out there, and this is a 4-step process where you put your starch out there in your box and you get good microbes. If it looks like the one that says failure below it, it's because the guy used a plastic container. He never filled up the rice properly, and it's just any kind of mold. It's IMO, but it's not the soil microbes you want. It's just like Obi-Wan Kenobi. These are not the microbes you're looking for. The ones you want is the correct ones. So you get those, you get them from your farm, you get them from a Mauka forest where it's still kind of rich. And you always want to bring them from a higher elevation down to your farm. You go get it from a nice bamboo patch growing up more Mauka. You get it from a nice banana patch growing up Mauka. You bring those to your farm, and all those, you can get multiple of these. And when you get many of them, then you get even more diversity, more strength. But they're the indigenous microbes already living there. Once you get those guys, you bring them back to your farm, you mix them with equal parts sugar. What that does is it preserves it. Since I'm on the Star Wars bend, it's like Han Solo and carbonite. That sucker is frozen, yeah? And so you get all this original microbes coming in, and you freeze them like that, just like that. They just chill. And they're waiting for you to then dilute with water later. So equal parts sugar going to freeze them, okay? And if you look at the bottom picture, you can see I just put an example of all the different kind of seed IMOs I collected, you know, bamboo patch, Mauka forest, farm forest, you know, and get different collections, different times, different weather. The more diversity you get, the better. And once you freeze these guys in the jar, they can stay in there for years. But it's best you use them within a year, 2 years, because you don't want it to go too long. These guys then can be diluted into water, and you can make a tea, just like you would any other compost tea. Or you can go on to the next step, which is what they call IMO3, which is where you propagate them. So what you see on the top there, those different colors, is the different ingredients. You need some maintenance solution, some LAB, 1 cup of that seed IMO that you collected plus some salt. You mix that into water, even better if it's oxygenated. You bubble it, stir it, get water from a river, get rainwater, or better, fresh rainwater. Then you mix that into a substrate. Like I showed you in the beginning, I was using dog food and wood chips. The whole key with the substrate is enough food in there. You cannot just use brewery waste. You got to have enough carbohydrates, fats, oils, all these things. Dog food has all that. Plus the wood chips gives it the bulking. But I also use horse feed. So mature horse feed, it's mostly mill run. And I can get a bag of it for like 20 bucks. And then I mix that in. I throw it in a cement mixer, mix all this stuff together, then I empty it out. Then what you end up with is a pile, just like you saw in the very beginning, that one slide. This thing below, this graph, is not a picture of the pile. It's a picture of the temperature, meaning that as soon as you mix these nutrients in, they're going to want to spike in temperature up to 160 degrees. It's your duty as the natural farmer to turn it and do not let it go above 120 degrees. Because if it does, it's not the forest IMOs you want, it's different microbes growing. So each time you turn the pile, and I go out with a snow shovel and I physically turn the pile, it drops it about 10, 15 degrees. And Bronson can tell you all about this. It's a lesson in love, of loving your pile, because you need to turn it probably 3-4 times a day. If you let it overheat, it's no good. And one thing you can do is you can manage the height of your pile. For instance, when I go and turn it and it's real active, I usually keep it about 5-6 inches thick. If I'm going to turn it and I'm not going to watch it all night, I probably make it about 4 inches thick, which is more spread out, and I make it 4 inches thick. Because if it overheats from the thing, you grow the wrong microbes. And it's all about growing the right ones, the indigenous ones, the mellow, the balanced, the leaders. They don't like the high temperatures. So I cover it with a bit of grass. This process takes about 7 to 11 days. It is a labor of love, and you will get good microbes, but you can go do foot baths and all kinds. You can bury yourself in this, and it'll rejuvenate your whole body, give your mitochondria a rest because the heat enters your body. So it's really good stuff. But this is the recipe here. You can look at it. Then there's a 4th stage to this. But wait, there's more. And this 4th stage is the same process you just did in the 3rd stage, except for this time you're adding soil. So this is how you take all those microbes that were indigenous that you trained, and then you teach them how to deal with your soil where you're at. So 50% of the soil you're going to add, which in this case, since we're doing 100-pound pile, it's 50 pounds of it is from, or excuse me, no, this was, oh, excuse me, don't let me misspeak. We're using 50 pounds from the prior recipe, and we're using 50 pounds of soil, okay? Some of it is red soil, which you can either use some granite-like soil or just the red soil from like Mahipono land, where it's just red soil. There's no life left in it. It's just high mineral content. Then half of that should be soil from like your land in a field where it's a little bit better. And when you blend those two together, plus those microbes you made in the previous step, that's teaching those microbes how to use your soil. So 1 week for you is just 1 week. For the microbes, it's the equivalent of 10,000 years. So imagine you had 10,000 years of food, water, medicine, cleanser, everything you needed, and someone to take care of you so you didn't overheat. You can learn how to make that soil into all kinds of things: pipes, clay vessels, breathing apparatus, everything you need. So you're training your microbes how to work with your soil. And this is the reason why the Korean natural farming is so exceptional and so different than most practices, is that you're teaching the microbes, not only the good microbes from your area, but you're tuning them to use your soil, not anyone else's, yours. That's why it's indigenous, and that's why it's going to be the best at your place. And so through this process, what you end up with is kind of this fine dust powder. And the way to use that is you sprinkle it 1,300 pounds per acre. Or What I do a lot is I make a compost tea. I just brew it in a compost tea, and I go through all these steps because I tune the microbes to my land. I tune the microbes to what I, how they can be best for me. Plus, I like doing the microbe spa. I bury myself in the pile while it's cooking, and it's one of the best rewards. You cannot get it any other way. So that's the whole process. That's what you would consider IMO 4 in Master Cho's language, but I also consider it soil activated indigenous microorganisms because they know how to use the soil. So that's the recipe. The caveat is you gotta keep it low temperature when you're propagating them. If your pile goes above 120 degrees, it's gonna smell like asphalt. And that smell like wet asphalt when it's coming, when it rains. And that is a sign that you're growing actinomycenes, which is not what you want. They'll clean your soil real good, but they're not the indigenous microbes you want. So the whole key is to keep it low temperature. And the only way to do that is to constantly watch your pile and turn it. There are easier ways to turn it than a shovel. You can run like a rototiller through it if you wanted. But the key is to turn the entire pile. Don't leave a small layer at the bottom where your actino is going to grow and then it's going to come up and infect your pile again. You got to be real good at turning it. So, and with this, you cannot go wrong. But I can give you one last microbial recipe here tonight. And this is the lactic acid bacteria. And it's fail-proof. You cannot go wrong. It's like the police. So when you put good law enforcement in there, like imagine that was possible, they will get the rest of your society into order. These guys are the most powerful microbes in the Milky Way, which is also kind of a funny joke if you think about it later. So these guys, what you do is it's a recipe where you collect them out of the air into starch, and then you propagate them in milk. So because the police can go and they can tell the neutral microbes, bring them the good leadership, make sure things stay in order. I think the next two slides. Yeah. So the next one, I'm just going to go into these because it's just one page. It's a little small. I'll show you the top half first, which is this. The recipe is easy. Everybody in Hawaii get white rice, water and milk most of the time, some brown sugar and some 3 half-gallon jars. And if you follow this recipe, you will end up with 1.5 gallons of this, which dilutes 1 to 1,000. So that makes 1,500 gallons of usable product. So this is one of the cheapest ways to get good microbes and get them out onto your land, besides the original dirty, cheap microbes I showed you. The one problem with this is that just like the police, they're expensive. If you don't give them enough food, they will hustle you and get their paycheck from you. They become corrupt real easy. So if you're putting a ton of LAB and not enough foods, like the maintenance solution that I talked about, they will steal from your indigenous microbes. And you'll get early goodness for a year or two, and your farm then won't perform after that because they'll eat out all the other food. So if you're going to use the police all the time, also be using food all the time. It's like if you got cops, you got to pay them, otherwise they get corrupt. And it's just the nature in the way. So the recipe is super simple. It says it's 3 steps here, which you can make it as many steps as you like, but 3 is good. First step, when you wash your rice and you wash it real good, you get that milky water, put that out. It's best if you put it in a shallow pan, even though mine shows it in this tall jar. Put it in a shallow pan. All the bacteria blowing by land inside, you catch them. Then after 24 to 72 hours, somewhere in there, you'll smell it. Kind of smells like when sourdough. You get that, and you might see bubbles forming. Or if you start to get things growing on the top, you know it's ready. Pour all that into milk. What the milk does is it starves out all the rest of the bacteria. Only the lactobacillus can grow. And what happens is your milk separates, like this picture here you see next to step 2. The curds rise up, which is all your milk fats. And then the proteins, the whey protein, and the wave bacillus goes down to the bottom. And it's that juice that you want. You can take the curds, you can mix it with some garlic. It's really tasty. You can eat it. Or you can feed it to your animals. Dogs, cats, they love this stuff. You take the liquid, and then the picture next to step 3, you add equal parts of brown sugar. This step you don't have to take if you keep it in the fridge, but if you want it shelf stable, you want it on your farm, you mix equal sugar. And that picture there is just where I mix the whey and the equal sugar. You then need to stir it really well, okay? I never had step 4, which is stir real well. But it does say it on step 3. It says stir sugar thoroughly clockwise direction while thinking pleasant thoughts to stabilize. Now, it's very important. Pleasant thoughts are very important. But once you mix this up, you got a shelf-stable microbe, and that's lactobacillus. So this one, then, the use is up in the prescriptions that I gave you prior in the recipes. Under the 7 prescriptions, you'll see LAB is called for a lot. I also take this and drink it. It helps with any indigestion. I also use this a lot in my laundry. If you forget the clothes in the washing machine a couple days, no problem. The bacteria doesn't smell stank. You just move it, then you can move it to the washing machine. I pour in about an ounce each time I do laundry. Not only that, each time my clothes come out, it's coated in microbes. So some disease lands on me. I got the KNF police. They just take care of that. I don't get sick as much. It's all inside on my clothes. So I drink it, I wash with it. You can use it as a cleaning agent. They use this to clean in meat plants, where it's better at cleaning than bleach. There's scientific studies you can read. So with this recipe, you have this. You can use this almost anywhere as a good starting point, but eventually get to the IMOs and make sure if you are using this, you're also feeding them quite regularly. So almost getting to the end for questions. I hope you wrote them down. My voice is getting a little bit sore, but I feel so weird. I'm in my room yelling at my computer to you guys on Maui. It's amazing. But I don't know why I'm yelling either. I guess I could talk more soft, but I get these headphones on. I felt like yelling. I don't know. So how do I do it? What do I do? Shoot, man, I do a lot in my life. My main goal though is trying to mitigate poisons in the world, trying to bring the earth into balance. Not only myself, my own practices, my own things, but trying to teach people the goodness. So I program computers. I do a lot of stuff. I try to get out at least once a week to spray maintenance formula at least on all my things. So I have a tractor sprayer. I'm able to drive around and spray everything. If I don't, I can start to see, like if it rains too much and I'm not spraying, the plants come a little bit sick. The leaves drop off. They get not as healthy. When I am consistently spraying maintenance solution plus other things once a week, everything, no matter the weather, no matter if it's dry, wet, it's thriving. Things fruit, things flower, things hammer. My kalo comes strong. I don't get the tobacco mosaic virus. The cassava comes heavy. My sugarcane just shooting way more shoots. My sugarcane comes that fat. It's a pake variety, so it's a little bit bigger, soft, but comes so just amazing. It's so big, I get 1 gallon per sugarcane stalk when I turn it into juice. I have to cut it in 4 pieces before I can fit it in the juicer. So I try as much as can to be out there, spray as much as I can. I balance a lot. Sue's just walked in behind me. She ends up spraying a lot too. And she does a little hand sprayer, which she sprays, on our squash. We get amazing squash where you cannot really grow squash our side of the island, but it grows because we spray it and it has the structure it needs to keep its strong self. And again, it's just, the formulas are on the prescription page, so you can find out how we're doing it. But really, I like to think of, trying to make my place like a living temple where people come over and they see all the plants we have and they're like, wow. Because if I can get there and I can get it that inspiring, then I figure I don't gotta tell people. People can sit in the bushes and spy at me and be like, how's he doing that? And that's the level I like get to. The other thing I really do at my place is I do a thing that I call pile tech. So oftentimes we get mulch and then we spread out the mulch. Not anymore, not at my place. I always keep it in huge piles, like what is it? 2 tractor buckets. I don't know how much that is. It's probably 30 cubic feet in one pile. I don't know. It's big piles, maybe even more, 40 cubic feet in a pile. Why do I do that? Because if I spread it out, the microbes, they'll eat all that and it'll just be gone. If I make a pile, that pile will be there 4, 6, 8, 10 months later. It'll be a pile. You go dig under that pile, you'll find the softest soil. Go plant around that pile concentrically and you'll grow amazing plants. Had I spread it out, the grass would grow up, would take it over, and I'd have nothing left after a couple weeks. And that mulch, all that stuff is super expensive for me, just machine-wise. Even sometimes I gotta get a dump truck of it out here. It's like, it's too expensive. So when I make a pile, then I put the microbes into there. What they start to do is build a fortress. That is their main central hub. And from there, the microbes will spread out and they'll suck that nutrition out. And if I can plant concentrically and get that thing to go out, that is like one of the best things I've learned in the past couple of years is I never spread out my mulch, never. I always make a pile and then I got a nice weed whacker with the sickle bar on it. So any grass that grows up, I can sickle bar that. Then I take all the weeds, throw them on top of the pile, and I just make it into a living compost. Plant a banana next to it. So now I got a water tank, living water tank. And then plant all the kalo, right now we're planting a bunch of ava and, things I don't got to irrigate because every time go reach inside that pile of wood chips, every time it's wet, every time, no matter if it hasn't rained for a week, it's still wet inside. So it does all my water management. It gets the microbes to go. It makes the soil more rich. And that's one of the best things I learned about it. So last slide before I get to questions. It's just, like I said in the beginning, I'm trying to get more professional about this. I made this 501c3 nonprofit. It's pureknf.org. But truly, it's been a journey, since 2005 when Master Cho first came, walking all the way up through this valley to be into 2020. But if you look at these pictures, these are some of the things that I can dream about. Sometimes I look at my plantings and I get down low and I imagine it just extending to infinity, that all of Hawaii becomes one food forest planted, productive thing where kikis can run around and play, we can learn, we can be nourished, we can swim in the river because it's clean, we can have no smell pigs not causing waste, we can have as much eggs from the chickens, we can get simple spraying technique to feed our land, that the whales is happy, that the fish, the reefs is coming back to life. And every person, that loves Hawaii knows how important the water cycle is and how important it is to restore the trees and to bring this life back, because vai is richness in Hawaii. And vai is water, is riches. And it's all about our water cycle. And that all starts with the indigenous microbes under the soil, bringing this whole thing to life, making it more clean. And the thing for me too is partnering with the animals. Pigs, you go pig sty, it's so stank. You come to my house, you can't even smell them. It's bringing the animals back into our city, bringing it back into our town, bringing it right next door to your house, so you can love that animal with all your heart, so that you raise the most calm, stress-free animal, that you're providing this good nourishment for everybody. And then when you kill the thing, you take the bones and char them and make more KNF structure. And it's all about getting these cycles going again, getting everything coming so that we can rebuild Hawaii. And from here, this pico of the world, we can spread out to the rest of the world, because they get their own set of issues, yeah? But if we can make Hawaii the most beautiful thing, always we're gonna have value, not only for our own people eating our own stuff, but we can get food sovereignty, which, as long as you're well armed, that equals sovereignty for you, you know. And hopefully we're gonna have enough food that guys don't like scrap us, right? It's like, oh, come, and it's like, oh, come eat, come eat. The old Hawaii, the way of old Hawaii was food. All the statues, open mouth, because it's all about food. And that's my vision. That's what I like restore to. That's what I'm trying to work for, trying to get these methods out, trying to build a better Hawaii, trying to build myself better, trying to be upright, trying to practice what I preach. And not just trying, I mean, I do every day. I gotta do this. And it's just made me a better, richer person. And so I hope, you know, with what we're doing with our foundation, we can help share, unify, get people real solid in natural farming, get people the right practices so they can get certified, eventually get that so we can market, so people can know, oh, I like the best one. And we can share this, because when we set that mark high and people want to buy from you, they know every single thing that went into your plant was edible. Not just, oh yeah, you put this or that the food you fed your food was edible, that your farming practice made the land more rich, more strong, that you're thinking about not just you, but the next generation and the next generation, and making the land more rich for them, then this is a society that, what's going to stop us? I mean, short of crazy guys coming, but it's like, if we all embrace this as people of this land and we restore Hawaii to something, it's like, I don't know. That's my dream. That's what I'm up to. So with that, I'll take any question. Since it's April Fool's, can ask me weird shit too. Oh yeah, I go and clap. Woo.
Aloha, Eric, Dr. Drake. Thank you so much for your time and your articulation of all this. You know, you've got me. You know, a believer in KNF, and I want to be your Kanaka connection on Lanai. So I do have a few questions for you.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks. When you talked about spraying your solutions, timing, is that important? The time of day, sorry.
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. Sorry, I should put that in the main presentation. The best time to spray your plants is 2 hours before sundown, because the plant can eat and then it can grow overnight. The second best time is in the morning when the stomata is open and before the heat of the sun. And the rest of the times are not as optimal, but I always teach my students rule 0, meaning that if it's not the optimal time right now and you say, oh, I'm not going to spray today because it's not the afternoon, it's not the morning, that's the worst time. Like, that's the worst. You got to spray when you can. And the whole key to this is frequency. So it's not necessarily what time of day you spray it. Certain times are more favorable. What it comes down to is, if you spray every 7 to 11 days, your plants will always be nourished with the food, the cleanser, the medicine, the structure. They will always have all the things they need to continually grow. And you won't get this thing, like, for instance, papayas is a real easy crop to notice, because if you don't feed your papaya, you'll get what they call skip, where all of a sudden the tree is growing and no more fruit. And then you spray it again, you'll see fruit. And then you don't spray, you see skip. And so it's frequency, because papaya is a heavy feeder, but this is just an example of many crops. It's, if you spray every week and you're able to do that, you will get the best results. Now, I want to just a little bit more on this, is that if you have an orchard, say I'm growing 500 acres, or I got a huge fruit trees, it's not as necessary to be out on your fruit trees every week. When you want to spray your fruit trees is right before flowering. That's the most important time. Then the second most important time is after it's flowered, when you're going back into veg stage, so you can get that good vegging. And then the other most important time would be when it's coming back around and right after you're done, like actually while your plants are fruiting themselves, so you can get even more sweet fruit. So you got to balance when is the best time to spray for your equipment, your time, your location, and your crop. So all that factored in, you may not get to it all the time. But the other thing is that as you build these microbes and they get more rich in the soil, the less it matters you got to do, because they will find the nutrients. So the longer you practice KNF, the less you got to do as a farmer. So all those factors combined, timing is a little bit strong, it is complex, but my best advice is do what works for you. And I got one other advice on that is don't carry water. Don't put it on your back. Get one hose system where you can just go in with hose sprayer and just hose from there. And if you can carry them, don't carry more than like 5 gallons. Or get one machine you can just drive and go. Or what I have up in my barn is actually a flood system where I catch rain off my roof. I fill up a 1 ton, 275 gallon tote. I mix the solutions in and I run it out through 2-inch PVC. And that PVC I can position wherever I like because it's not glued together. So think of some system that's going to be easy. Use gravity. Don't try to carry a bunch of water.
Awesome. Thank you. You were looking for a different term for police, and I would suggest protectors.
Not bad. Yeah.
And
Like
then
bouncers.
I'm going to write that down. You're not going to copyright them, huh? No.
all for you. And then you were talking about a name for KNF. You could say yesterday or our last class, Kaipo Ke Kona with the Kuiai gave a lecture, and he called it Kanaka natural farming. And Kanaka means human being. So I think that's kind of what you're looking for.
To a degree too. I know in Hawaii with that Kanakas, that's how I talk about it. A lot of times, tonight I used a lot of Western terms, but I know a fair amount of Olelo because born and raised over here. But I appreciate that. Yeah, and it's getting the right place. I think one issue with it is each place kind of has their own way, and that's one of the nice things about Korea, because this technology came from Korea, which is nothing near Hawaii. It snows, it's super hot, but these recipes are generic enough, and I don't know if that's the right term, but I can take the essence of the recipe and make it like, because in Korea they make it with mugwort and dropwort. In Hawaii, I make it with banana, and so it's like adapting, but it's the core essence. And so I think there's part of that issue is to have each people and to let them take this technology and them to name it for their indigenous zone. So I really appreciate the idea of Kanaka for Hawaii, because it's true. It's true.
Sorry, I'm going to keep asking a few more questions, and then I'll turn it over if that's okay.
That's good. It's good with me.
So you talked about seeing the plastic in the ground, and that's a big issue here on Lanai. Also chemicals in the ground, which sounds like you shouldn't be too concerned about it because the carbon engineering with the microbes will take it out. But do you have any solutions for the plastic? Because I was at that Hawaii Farmer Union with Paul Stamen, and I asked a question, but unfortunately he didn't have a chance to answer it. But there's a microbe called Aspergillus tubigenus. Aspergillus tubigenus. Well, anyways, it breaks down polymer bonds and degrades plastic in the ground a lot faster. Have you heard of that? Do you know if that's in Hawaii possibly?
Well, so I got two answers to that. One is that if you start growing your indigenous microbes and you got a bunch of plastic, the ones that'll start to thrive are the ones that will eat your plastic. So they will adapt to your local conditions. So what you can do is, you feed them, and they'll, so IMOs, if you get IMOs and you do good IMOs, they will adapt to that area and do that thing and make it work. Right. Now the second thing I want to add to that is if you do get a hold of that particular inoculum, you can still use a bunch of KNF. You don't want to necessarily introduce the IMO and the LAB to that, those two microbes, because, or the citizens or the protectors, because they'll interfere. But you can still brew a compost tea using the rest of the KNF foods that I talked about. So the rest of those 9 solutions, you can start to give them the fuel, the food, the cleanser, the medicine, the structure, and they will use that to make themselves stronger when you're brewing these specific microbes. So you can power them up and make them even more strong by the time you spray them out. Now you got even more of them. And the thing is, when you're using a specialized microbe like that, it won't be very persistent in the environment for very long because it doesn't have those foods. So you're gonna have to continually apply it. But if you're able to brew it and use it, solve your problem, then you can put back the the IMOs after you're done. And then it'll all return to balance. Like I said, the whole point of what I'm trying to do is get balance. So they will think it's a food source. You can get them, you can power them up, and you can use them. And I think that that's a good idea.
Thank you. And just the last couple things is for your lab, can you use chocolate milk or?
I love that question. It's great. I used to work at an elementary school, so they would get all the chocolate milk and I don't know if we got strawberry milk. I think we had strawberry milk too. I don't know, but those milks they would give us the old like about to expire ones, and I would make the LAB with the students.
Awesome.
You can. The thing is, you don't want to eat that curds. That curds is not good. And the one thing I did notice when you use the chocolate milk one is your shelf life is not as good. So when you make it from the chocolate milk, just use it a bit faster. Like I would say about 1 month versus the other one can store 3 to 6 months. It's one of the fastest expiring natural farming solutions is the protectors. But that if you use them, it's just because there's other things in there that, that there's even emulsifiers and different things. It can get a little weird, but you can make it. It separates and go ahead. It's great stuff because it's a great way to recycle, especially if you're working with the kids at the school. They always have the chocolate milk. Although the problem is when you try to make it, they all keep drinking it. It's like, oh, bro, ease up.
And then how about pasta water in replace of the rice water?
To a degree. So instead of the rice water, I've done it with white bread in the Philippines when I was there. The pasta water, as long as it's a milky color, as long, you want to get enough starch in there that it's really well saturated with your starch. So if you pour it and it's still kind of clear, then not. But if it's real nice and milky, then totally. Yeah, that's a good one.
All right, I'll turn it over to someone else to ask some questions.
Gee.
I'll jump up next if I can. I got a couple of questions, but I'm gonna I'll leave it up to the one because I know everybody wants to pounce. Most time sensitive. So I'm looking at creating and gathering IMOs in my property. Silver lining to some shit that went down a couple of weeks ago with the floods. We have a large deposit of soil that has come downstream when we suffered from the flooding on the East Maui side. Now, if I'm establishing IMOs, is it a good idea to dig into that stuff and get some of that stuff going, or should I be worried about whatever potential contaminants are upstream and stay away from it?
Which so just for clarification, which are you talking about? Gathering your IMO one, like your seed IMO from there, or making
because I'm starting from zero, so both.
So where you want to, so you could use that soil later for the IMO 4 when you're staging it process.
Yeah.
But what you're looking for in the IMO 1 is actually undisturbed. The longer those microbes have been there and the deeper the leaf litter, like if if you go gather under an old mango tree or an old avocado tree, you'll notice there's leaves. And when you start digging in that dirt, it'll be just like rich. And it's that you want instead of this like sediment that's come down, even though it may be rich or whatever. They just got so worked in that traveling process of being in the river and everything coming down. You want to go to the least disturbed possible place to gather your IMOs, as long as it's higher elevation and it's not very climactically different. Like, you know, you wouldn't want to gather, like from one side of the mountain and then the other. Like you want to get from your same rainfall-ish area, you know, within reason.
So
But yeah, the longer they've been there, the more developed they are.
Put aside for a couple of steps down the road, but don't worry, it might just use it because it's there and it's really rich smelling stuff. And I know the neighbors been shoveling it off and either dumping it back in the stream or trying to move it around. And I wanted to gather some of it up. I just didn't know if there was any concern with any runoff or anything that might have been going on upstream that could potentially affect or knock down that established IMO.
So, yeah, so it would be better to use it for later. If you are ever worried about contaminants in your soil media, the microbe to use is the protectors. So spray that in, let it sit for a week, and those guys will go to work and they will eat out anything. So for instance, on my place, sometimes I get mulch from the county and it's just whatever ground up, and it comes and it's supposedly compost, but it's not. It's so hot and it's full of pathogens and kids' toys and tires and all kinds of, you know, full of all kinds of stuff. That stuff, when I get it, I just dilute the police, 1 to 1,000, 1 to 500, somewhere in there. Just spray it down and try to, you know, as if I was making my compost pile wet type thing. They will go in and they will eat out any kind of toxin. So I don't worry too much about the contamination. They take care of it.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Hey, I got a question. How or would you use KNF in a nursery setting? And if you did, would you put that in the potting mix, or obviously you could spray it?
So one, you can add about 10% of the IMO4 to your potting soil blend, and it will really help to establish those roots and those microbes. The other is anytime you're you know, like I said, when like the Ava keikis, like any of your little seedlings, you can kind of just come by and mist them and you'll get better growth. The other thing is that as a transplant dip, to go between where you're growing in pots, and then actually shake all the dirt off and then soak them in that transplant soak for about 15 minutes. Deny them water first and then soak them. It's kind of a hard process, but they'll suck up all those nutrients. And then when you plant them into the soil, all that nutrients will communicate with all your microbes you have out there. So in a nursery, we're right now in Hawaii, on Hawaii Island, we're doing we're converting over a flower nursery where they do orchids in pots, and they're you know, a nursery. And so we're spraying it once a week with the maintenance solution, and a lot of their disease problems they had prior to this are going away.
Cool. Would you do that from the beginning stage, or would you, you know, because sometimes you want to keep the seeds and the plants all sterile, but you know?
Sterility is extremely hard to maintain. Odds are, instead of sterility, it's going to go pathogenic. So what I try to do is think of it like you know, like there's these like different places things can plug in. And if you have, or like a better way to explain it is like a beach. If everyone's at the beach already, there's no place for you to go unfurl your towel and sit down. So if you're a bad guy and you're coming to the beach, there's no place for you to go. You have to kick someone else out first. And so that's what we try to do, as opposed to making it sterile and getting rid of everything. We try to make sure every site is plugged in with a beneficial person that's going to like know and treat the place right. And that everyone has kuleana. So So by using the combination of the police plus the IMO, it's actually slightly better than trying to maintain sterility. Sterility is as soon as something bad gets, there's no good guys to stop it. And so the bad just takes off so fast. So by putting enough good guys, you can actually mitigate a lot of that. And like I was saying with the 80-20 of the good, the bad, if you get enough good guys, the bad guys, they just, even though they're there, they can't take hold. It's just good.
Cool. Sweet. It was awesome tonight. Thank you. I think this was the best class we've had, man. It's awesome.
I say April Fool's this way. It's all a joke. I'm not even a farmer. I work in banking. No.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, no problem, bro.
Any other questions? Because I have some.
Yeah, I just wanted to give other people some opportunity too, because I have like so many questions.
Oh, shoot,
but I'll just
till 8:30, so fire, bro. We got plenty.
So first of all, I appreciate you so much. This has been so clear and so motivating and so energizing, so inspiring. So I just really, really appreciate you. And yeah, I wanted to ask you about if as far as going to the forest and getting IMO, and you mentioned bamboo, like a bamboo forest is good, and like something that comes up in my mind is how the bamboo forests are invasive here, you know, and how they cause like problems in the local ecosystem. And so I'm thinking, like, if you want to cultivate native ecology, like what are your considerations when you're going into the forest? Like, can you speak on that a little bit? And if there's an ideal like type of area that you should pull from, or if it's just like the forest is juicy and it doesn't matter.
Okay, so this is good. This is good. Now you're getting into the more specifics of IMO. The reason I suggest bamboo is not that it's invasive, that it's going to take over. Like that is a concern, but that's not where the microbes are concerned with. The microbes, the reason the bamboo grows so well is because the microbes are conditioning the soil so well and able to find the nutrients for the bamboo. Reason being is bamboo puts a lot of sugar into the soil. People, old timers tell you of, you know, you pick the bamboo roots and you suck on them as little kids, and it's sweet. It soothes the little kids. And before they had candy, that's what you do. You could get the bamboo roots and you suck on them. That's the reason I recommend bamboo. It's not that the invasive part is going to take over and that it's going to create that. It's that the microbes that start to grow are able to take your indigenous soil and find so much resources because they're so well fed. So that's why I would go to bamboo, because it's going to be a higher colony population and those microbes are going to be better. Like not better is not the right word, but more populous and more easy to get. And then when you take those and you put them to some place where the bamboo seeds or the bamboo shoots are not spreading, then that same soil conditioning factor will be translated over, not necessarily the invasiveness of the bamboo. So that's the reason for bamboo and banana. Both of those put a lot of what you call exudates, which is feeding the soil these different sugars out. So the microbes grow really well in those root systems. So that's that reason why I said bamboo, banana specifically. Now, another place you want to go is to the healthiest part of your forest. So if you have a Mauka forest, because the sugarcane company didn't go up that high, at least on my island, to go destroy the higher forest, and some of it is still intact. Almost 99% of the stuff around here is invasive and introduced though. The native forest is struggling so hard. So if you are able to go to those older spots, they're further along in like succession towards returning to forest than someplace lower where the sugarcane company was just bulldozing and destroying. So that's a consideration as well. Now, when you get to something real specific, like koa, for instance, koa has its own set of microbes. It has its own ecosystem that it starts to go. it has its own moss that starts to grow that brings nitrogen down when it rains, that comes even more rich. So if you're going to try to grow koa, go to your nicest koa forest, get it, bring it. Then when you go try plant koa, it's going to be even better. Same with ohia. You know, you think like for me, you know, like Big Island, especially Puna side where I come from, is more rocky. And if I go out there, I see a certain type of lichen growing. Now these lichens love digesting the rock, and they love, and then if you go look in the lava field, there's only ohia growing, you know, some ferns a little bit, and ohia, and nothing else. And so if you go out to that area and you start to dig and you go right in that little area right there and you put an IMO box and you collect that ohia one, now you're going to get that set of microbes, which is specifically tuned for ohia. And so what I recommend is you get a couple collections. You get one that's a Mauka forest that's good. You get one specific if you're trying to go ohia. You get one from the bamboo forest nearby you, or just one bamboo patch in the root zone. And you take all these and you combine them when you go make your IMO 3, your IMO 4, or an IMO T. You combine those. This way you're getting all that diversity and the best of all the worlds. The other thing I try to do, you know, when I enter the forest is prior to going there, spray myself with the protectors. Like don't be, you know, you don't want to bring contaminants. So you can spray that. That'll within 15 minutes, that'll eliminate any pathogen. So for biosecurity, instead of trying to like bleach out and clean myself that way, I tend to go with a probiotic way of doing it, where I put these types of things. One way we do biosecurity here at my farm with my pigs is we have IMOs on the ground, and there's foot and mouth disease that's all over. They even quarantine farms. But when the veterinarian came to talk to me about that, I was like, what is that? I didn't even know, because people always come and they step in the IMO before they enter my barn. So they're always inoculated with this good microbes. So they're always getting the good stuff on top of them. So it's a way of understanding this. And of course, the more you can match to get that specific crop, that IMO, and then spread that area, it's going to be even better. You're going to get an amplification effect. So I hope that's helpful for you. And also the other thing I do at the forest is try not to take too much. The native forest is the most fragile, needs the most help. And so if you can go treat native plants, dilute more instead of making it stronger, dilute more. And don't just go spray any kind anywhere. Be real mindful.
Well, my niece is having a thing right now, so I didn't hear the last sentence. But if anybody else wants to ask a question, I'll come back later. I just want to give her a second.
Aloha.
Well,
I have a question about using the LAB. Yeah, LAB.
protectors. Call them the protectors. More easy.
The protectors. I'm trying to get used to the acronyms. So the LAB, because I have some given to us by Vince, and he was telling me to use it in our chicken coop. Because we have right now, our chickens are kind of free range, but I'm trying to we have like a few different coops, and I've kind of always had them like that. I let them go free, but because I want to have their eggs, like every day is an Easter egg hunt because they're everywhere. And so we're building a big coop, but the problem, I've always not wanted to do that because I was worried about just, they get more diseases this way when they're cooped up. And so Vince was telling me use that in the coop. So I'm just wondering about application and how does that?
Yeah. Okay, so here mostly I talked about plants, but what Master Cho is most famous for is animals, and he has a very precise system for raising chickens and a way to design the coop so that you can have like just optimal things, because it's not about you. It's about their health, and their chickens are very particular about how they get together, balancing up hens to enough roosters, creating their roosts the way they want, making the laying box the way they like, and all these things. And so if you go to my YouTube, you'll see there, I went to a 10-day chicken workshop where that's all we did was chickens. And this, it's like, you know, I love it. Our chickens are great. They do well. But, you know, you can, and so I could do a whole, you know, just days of talking about chickens because I love them so much. But to bring it simple back to your question about the LAB, the key is anytime it smells, what's wrong is you're having other biology such as E. coli or I don't know these, I don't know the names of all of them, but you're having these disease causing, like even salmonella is one maybe with chickens. You're having that grow. And the smell is they're digesting it. But if you spray the LAB will eat the poop or the waste faster than these E. coli or these salmonella can. And because they eat the food faster, there's nothing for these other disease-causing pathogens to eat. So their population goes way down and the LAB goes way up. And so if you don't have a deep litter floor, like there's a whole way to get the IMOs living where it's only about 4 to 6 inches of grass clippings and you put IMO and then they make it nice. But if you don't have that setup, you can just spray anytime it smells at all. Just dilute 1 to 1,000, go ahead and spray. In about 5 to 10 minutes, all the smell will be gone. I even take my chickens' food and I ferment it 24 hours. So I take their food, I mix it, I put in the maintenance, I put in some IMO, and I put in a little bit of LAB, and I mix it. I let it sit 24 hours and I feed them. So every day I'm making tomorrow's feed. And I feed them, and then the food comes out. It's a little bit warm. They eat it. It's pre-digested because I'm feeding them. I feed them some food scraps and stuff, but I also feed them some Babylon food because it's cheap. It's easy. When I factor in my time, it's like, oh, one bag is $20, and that's how much hours of my work to make the same thing. So I do feed them store-bought food, but I always ferment before I feed them to them, unless something happens, like we go vacation and someone else takes care of them.
That's really great. I've been looking into the fermenting of the food. I've been interested in that. So that's all great information. And my husband just pulled up the YouTube, so we're gonna check that out.
Oh yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Watch my recommendation. Watch them at like 1.5 to 2 times because otherwise it's too long.
Perfect. Thank you.
I want to say one thing. I stayed up next to Drake's chickens and camped up at the barn.
Is that somebody asking or just I cannot hear?
Oh, can you hear
Or it's just background noise. Bronson is doing something.
Pretty sure it's Bronson.
Oh, Bronson, try yell.
Hold on. Can you guys hear me?
Oh, just barely, bro. Hang on.
Let me try something.
I can crank the volume. Nobody yell.
Okay.
Okay. Get them now.
Is that better? Is that a little better now?
Oh yeah, guarantee.
Okay. Wanted to say one thing. You know, I camped up when I was doing the course, just learning about KNF and really my first time witnessing animals that were raised with that sort of care. The calmest chickens I've ever seen, you know, and just being around that energy was very healing too. So the animals are a very important integral part of a fully functioning farm. And so that was also a big realization for me and in my experience. And we'll talk more about it when you guys come here on Saturday. Come. But right on. Yeah. If anyone else has any questions, Drake's the man. So we might not have on Zoom, I mean.
Got one more, and it's a quick one. So thinking positive thoughts and steering clockwise. If you're in the southern hemisphere, do you steer counterclockwise or do you always steer clockwise?
You know, that's a great question, and it comes down to, you know, one thing that Korean natural farming can sometimes have is too much dogma. And you know, I say these things just as subtle things and notes. I don't know the answer of the southern hemisphere. I've actually only ever stayed in the northern hemisphere. One of these days I might get down there. Got some invites to go down Chile and stuff, but since you bring up that dogma, I just want to just address that just for a second. And the ultimate truth in all of this is, what is the result? So if I stir my stuff clockwise or I stir my stuff counterclockwise, is your water cleaner in your neighborhood? Is your people that live near you healthier? Are you feeling better? You know, does it make you happy? Are you scrapping someone just because they stir it the other way and you think you's better than them? Or is it coming down to the produce you're growing? Like how are you making your community better? And to me, that's the bottom line. That's the end of the story. All this stuff that I tell you, like all this precision, tiny minutia, this, that, it's just stuff from my experience. Even when you learn from Master Cho, a lot of his stuff comes from dreams. He prays about this stuff, and when he goes to sleep, that's how he gets visions, and he brings it forward. And you try bring that to any Western guy, anything, and they would laugh at you. The first guys, when Master Cho was trying to get this stuff going, they laughed at him. They were like, no smell pigs, get out of here. And you know what he did? He bought the guy a ticket to come see and visit it and see it for himself. And it's the seeing, it's the believing, it's going, it's the results, it's the end. Even my stuff, if you think, oh, it's this and that, it's not about the dogma, it's not about the minutia. It's about how we are as people making our thing better. So I'm glad to have that question, because and really the other thing that it's about is sharing what works for you and sharing with others and discussing in a way that you're not going to scrap the next guy, that you can be like, you can appreciate, that you can respect, that we can all learn how to make ourselves better people. Because when we get to that level, that's what it's about. It really is. But the true answer is clockwise.
So Eric, Mana again. So I have I'm growing some microgreens. Are you familiar with them? Okay.
To a degree, yeah. Like sprouts, like what Vince does, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So one of the problems that I encounter is I've been learning to deal with is mold. And it's probably because, you know, the wet season, a lot of humidity, you know, it's seed density and learning these things. But do you think the maintenance solution would be helpful in preventing mold growth?
Absolutely. Your two tools you really want to use in microgreens are the maintenance, because it has those things. Also probably a little bit of fuel, just very light, because that helps, because it's early DNA growth, and that's when it's the hardest to synthesize aminos. But also the police, or excuse me, you're better yet, the protectors. Okay, I'm gonna reprogram myself. Thank you. But what lactic acid bacteria can do is actually increase your leaf size. And prior to starting your microgreens, soak them in this solution, because it'll start to penetrate in. And there's actually microbes that are in the seed themselves that when you start to penetrate, they start to hatch and get better. And so prior to even sprouting, you can get these better conditions happening. So especially in the early stage, these things will really help. The other thing to do is when you get your microgreens, ferment those. And there's another recipe that's not necessarily Korean natural farming, but you might want to look up. It's called sprouted seed tea. They call it SST, but sprouted seed tea. And making that for microgreens is another very good thing, because what it has is like the enzymes and those the things that make the seeds sprout and grow in the beginning. because you're getting the sprouted seed and you're making a tea from it, that is very good for that type of situation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Also, could you talk a little bit about the biosecurity measures that you take? Do you have like a pan with lab on the ground people step in, or are you spraying their shoes? What procedures are you using for that biosecurity?
Well, Bronson, you like to talk about that? How is it at my place?
Oh, yeah. So, you know, biosecurity for me, my experience was just going out and walking into the food forest, walking into the pig pen, like up at the barn, you know, the stuff that he's taking out of his pig pens, he's planting into his farm. So it is kind of everywhere, you know. So there's no really, it's just one big connected system is what I witnessed. So.
And at this point, I've turned so many IMO piles up near my barn and everything that when it rains, my whole floor blooms out. Like I'm trying to put sandbags to keep it from coming in because it upsets my pile. You cannot get that extra moisture while you're turning IMOs. It really makes the process no good. So it spoils it. So I'm trying to keep the water. But this last flood, this past couple of weeks, I had a river flowing through my barn, and now it's just bloomed out everywhere, the entire floor, everything. I mean, you go up there, everything is covered in a layer of dust because the chickens just continually stir. And so it's a bummer for trying to keep things nice and from rusting because they get covered in, so much dirt. But it's a biosecurity dream. And when I'm up there and I'm turning these piles, I'm inhaling all that, and it's just, it helps me, my lungs, everything. I'm coated in microbes. It helps my whole, everything. It's just that diversity is the protection. I used to work elementary school and do this with kids, and the kids would come in all runny nose, all sick. I'd give them the solutions, have them drink it, and I'd be right there. Teachers all the time get sick. Me, I never got sick once when I was working with the kids, 5 years. So, it's anecdotal. I cannot say this or that, but I can say, like I can be right next to some kid that is sick, that has runny nose, that's touching stuff that I'm touching, and it's not transferring to me. So, good enough for me.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Thank you.
Yes, so what you just spoke on, them drinking up the applications, say like those of us who are learning about this, we're super stoked on maybe Master Cho's method, and we want to invest in like doing the full out, like challenging kind. Like, do you have recommendations for a good like infrastructure that would be helpful to us, so that like, if our timing's really important, if like it's important that it's easy to mess up, like what kind of setup would be really helpful for us to be successful?
Okay, that's a good question. So for infrastructure type things, number one, do not do this under your house, because it will undermine your foundation and make the soil so soft that your house will collapse. Even if you think you're on solid rock, the microbes love eating rock and they will collapse your house. So number one, do not do it under your house. Do it under but other thing is, like a 10-foot pop-up tent from where I live is too small for me. I need at least a 20 by 20 space that's dried in, that's 70% shade. Because if it's too small, what happens is the water will rain next, and then it'll suck it underneath it into the pile. And I'll come back and the pile will be sopping wet. And even though it never rained on it directly, it will suck water from underneath and up. So If you can do it in an area where you have a soil floor under, even better, because the microbes start to live in the soil and go up into it. But if you are on concrete or some indoor space, try put it up onto cardboard or something underneath so you can turn it and put a little bit of dirt under it so you can get it off. The other solution that people have been somewhat successful with is to turn it in a box. So if you make a wood box, like out of, not out of pallets because it's treated, but untreated wood, and you make a wood box that's maybe maybe like 2x4, maybe 3x4, like a box, you can turn it in that, and it also has pretty good results. So those are the things that make it a little bit easier, especially if you don't have access to dirt outside. I'd also recommend that you do it with a team of people. So like one other person that can kind of commit. So between the 2 or 3 of you, you can really work that pile. And then the other thing I recommend is don't do a pile smaller than 50 pounds, and don't do a pile that's bigger than like 500 pounds. Because if it's too small, you don't get the microbes to activate enough and kick off. It has to be big enough for it to go. And if it's too big, then it's too big to turn thoroughly. So if you're gonna go bigger than that, turn multiple piles that are smaller. Instead of saying, oh, I wanna do like 10-ton pile. It's like, no. Do like 20, 50, or 500-pound piles or 1,000-pound piles. Don't go too big, because if one pile goes, it overheats, then one pile overheats, not all of it, and it's much easier to manage smaller piles than huge ones. So those are my tips for like going at it, getting it together. Also, the first time you do it, you can learn a lot, trust me. And the second time you do it, you can learn more. The third time you do it, you can learn more. It's always a learning process. It's never something that, even if as much experience as I have, I'm always learning more. It's always slightly different. It's always a good time. And it always helps to have other people that are interested, because and getting in and doing a foot bath, and it's so relaxing. It's by far the most rewarding part of doing it.
Hey, would a barrel that like turns be a good place to do that if you didn't have like a pile?
Depends on your breathability. You don't want to have it in contact with plastic, because plastic doesn't breathe. You don't want to do it on metal because it's still the similar doesn't breathe kind of thing. So you want to have a natural like wood material. So if you can get a wooden barrel, then maybe that's okay. But there's a certain thing of like, growing it out, having it grow, and then turning it to keep it down. The other part that turning does is when I mix the outside of the pile, which is a slightly lower temperature, to the inside, which is a higher temperature, I'm getting more diversity happening. So there's a lot of reason to the specific methodology. There's faster ways to go about it and easier ways to go about it. But when you follow the recipe, you're getting like the outside to the inside, more diversity, more things changing. And there's a lot of subtleties happening. So not to say don't make it easy, because if it's easy, then you're more likely to do it. But there's a lot of reasons also for different considerations to think about.
Cool.
So with the tent, it can get too wet inside. And I live in East Maui, so it's really wet over here. And so is it important that it's enclosed?
Hey, I can, I'll say from my experience in haiku, it's not as wet, and I don't have much infrastructure at the farm that I'm helping to create right now. I kept my pile turned pretty much in the open sun, but what I did was I moved 2 tables on top of it and then put a tarp over those tables to prevent the rainfall. So then that way, each time I turned it, I could give it shade where the air was still blowing underneath it, and also it's not getting oversaturated. when it gets too wet or the microbes don't have enough room or food, you'll start to smell the death, and it smells very foul. So I had to add extra horse feed because I did it during raining season. So having an extra dry thing to add in if it gets too wet, you can really revive a pile very quickly. So that was my experience, and yeah, hopefully that's helpful.
And the other,
then would you just
thanks,
mix-
Bronson. That's awesome. The other thing that helps with a little bit of moisture management is to throw in a little bit of biochar into it, just a little bit, like a couple handfuls into the whole pile. But go ahead.
Cool. I appreciate you guys. That's awesome. And so you mentioned that since you want to ideally not be carrying the stuff all over. I was imagining like having the stuff centered up on top of a hill that would be like, above the fields that we would be growing in. And I'm wondering if there's any like issues with runoff potentially. If you have your space centered like right above everything, like what do you think about that?
Yes, you will have runoff, but it will be beneficial, and your neighbors will congratulate you for enriching their property. And the ocean will get richer, and the fish will come back, and the reefs will come back to life, and the sharks will return to our oceans, and all kinds of good stuff. So,
I love it.
and when just so you know, the tech that I have, it's fairly inexpensive for my spraying setup, and I should get a sponsorship before I tell you, but I use a Maruyama MS75E, and you can look it up online. It's just, but you don't have to buy that exact one, but it's just a little 2-stroke weed whacker engine that runs a pump that then is able to spray. So if I'm doing it on foot, that's what I use. And I bought that to do a papaya field, and it can drive about 300 feet of like 1/4 inch high pressure hose. And so that enables me just with coiling the hose properly and carrying it, I can go, from a central, put the mix in the middle and then walk wherever I want. And I'm not carrying all the water. I'm just carrying the hose that I got, plus then the sprayer. And that's a pretty easy thing to do. But if you do get a Maruyama, mention me. Maybe I'll get a sponsorship one day. I don't know.
That'd be a cool sponsorship.
Unreal. I sold more of those than anyone else, I think. Not that I saw, but I just recommend it. It's an easy product that really makes my life easy. And really with natural farming, in farming in general, it's about having the right equipment. It really is, you got to get the right pieces, the right things, and then it goes. But also partnering with nature, partnering with the microbes, getting in the synergistic building versus fighting, feeding versus poisoning. It's like you cannot go wrong. Nature wants to grow good for you. It's just a matter of understanding it, feeding it, nourishing it, thinking it's no different than you. If you're hungry, it's hungry. That's how.
Question? Is there any pests that KNF, like rose beetles, things like that are problems still?
I like Suze. Will you tell them a little bit about your rose beetle story? So one is look up Ocean Grace Farms on YouTube. That's my friend Amanda, and she solved, initially she was trying to solve a rose beetle problem, but she ended up solving every one of her problems on accident because she was just trying to use KNF for that. But Suze, why don't you tell them a little bit about your rose beetles? So this is a beautiful Suze. She really does all the work here. I just look good.
Hello.
Hi, Suze.
Hey everybody. So I planted 12 cacao trees on the land, and I was worried about the beetle, and I called this kilo cacao farmer, and I asked him, if I put them in the valley, do you think they'll be protected from the beetles? Because there's tons of trees that the beetles could, potentially be blocking the cacao trees. He said, no, sorry, there's nothing you can do. You'll just have to go down at night and pick them off with a flashlight, which was discouraging, but I planted them anyway. And they grew and they did okay, but they definitely started to get eaten by the bugs. And I just started spraying the maintenance formula, and they started to get better. And I also noticed there were fire ants on all the cacao trees at one point had fire ants, and also this mealy bug. And it looked as if the fire ants and the mealy bugs were somehow working together. And so the plants didn't look that good, but from spraying them with maintenance, I did it maybe about 5 times over the course of a month or so. And the fire ants were gone, the mealybugs were gone, and the new leaves came up strong. And to this day, they don't get bug eaten because they're hardened. They're not soft and susceptible to the beetles. It's pretty awesome.
Thank you, Sue, for sharing that. That's lovely.
Sales, etc. Hi, Eric. I have a question. Has any of the solutions been used for mushrooms?
Yeah, so for mushrooms, one thing that happens with mushrooms is they tend to be very specific for different things. So if you're using IMOs like on a mushroom log, it's not going to be beneficial because of the other things. However, the maintenance solution, which includes the medicine, is really beneficial for growing the mushrooms. It tends to enhance its metabolism and speed up the process in the way that the mushrooms can convert those carbohydrates into, or I think I don't want to use the too scientific term because I might jumble it up, but it converts the wood into mushroom meat very, very quickly. So by taking your logs and soaking them into that solution while it's in the growing process and letting that stuff soak into the wood, it actually increases your mushroom yield.
So possibly even soaking the substrate with the solution.
The one thing you do have to be careful of is like I said, the contamination where they're not all sterilized. And one of the most important things in mycology is sterility, because you want that specific strain to take over. And like I was saying, natural farming is about diversity and balance, which you're actually not creating a diverse or balanced environment. You're trying to create a very specific thing. So it can be good and it can be not so good. It depends. I personally don't have a huge bunch of experience there, but theoretically, the metabolism speed up is one thing that I do know happens. And the one that is the medicine, the OHN, is already made with alcohol. So potentially it's sterile enough for this application.
Thank you.
Dr. Drake, are there any cocktails that you shouldn't mix together? I mean, you have the core cocktails, we have the maintenance cocktails, we have the IMO. Should we keep those separate? Can we mix them together?
Well, if you look at all the 7 prescriptions that I gave you on that one page, and I'll make sure you guys get the PDFs for that. No, I mean they're all pretty darn similar. It really gets into the subtleties of your crop, of what you're growing, to really tap in. There's one thing I would caution you of is overdoing fuel. Oftentimes people think about nitrogen and they think, oh, that one's nitrogen. But I believe that's just because of NPK, P and the K. People confuse. They don't know which one's potassium or phosphorus. They know the nitrogen is N, so they know they need nitrogen, so they just juice it. But what can happen is you can get what they call overgrowth, Whereas if you get too much foliage growing and not enough root, it becomes very hard for the plant to then go into its reproductive cycle. So you can get this beautiful, big looking plant, but then it doesn't produce good fruit. And that's because you have over nitrogen. And so the fuel, you got to go easy on it. And that's one thing I would say. The other thing is that as long as you're following those recipes with those dilutions, you can't really go wrong. I said spray once a week, but the truth is you could spray this every day. You could do it every time, you know, as long as you don't drown your plant, right? But you could use this every single time. The one problem is that it becomes a cost benefit thing. How much are you benefiting from spraying every day to what you can sell your produce for? And the other thing, Gil in the Philippines, he told his worker to spray while he was on vacation for about a month and a half. The guy thought he said spray every day. He came back, the fruit was too big and he couldn't sell it anymore because people don't want the big fruit. They wanted like the small size papaya, and he grew just huge papayas. So it's all in your experience and whatever you can do. You can't, as long as you're diluting properly, you can't really overdose. The one problem is like if you go too heavy, like say I dilute 1 to 20 instead of 1 to 500, that can cause problems, especially other pest problems. You know, like ants, other things, pests. It's just like you. If you eat too much, you can cause problems. It's right amount, right time, right matching that. So I appreciate these questions, you guys. It's good. It's good to get into the fine nitty gritty. I know there's lots of questions on the application and the how, because I tend to talk so theoretical and so like big picture. But what you'll find is as you start to practice and as you start to use these solutions, you'll see the results yourself and you'll notice and you'll know, like, because it's so easy to tell if your plants are sick or if they're unhealthy or they're hungry or they don't have much structure. Like your plant's all droopy, right? Oh, you need more structure. Oh, it's not growing leaves very fast. Oh, I'm gonna add more fuel. Like as you start to get into this and as you start to get more comfortable, I hope the way I present it is it's almost like common sense. Once you learn the basic dilutions, the basic things, you can be the master of your farm. And if it's this way, then you know how to use the tools, And so that's mostly my goal, is to get you so you feel confident that way. Because the more you farm, because I cannot teach you how to be a good farmer. That just is time, guaranteed. Like no matter who and what, it's time. It's you can learn from your failures. You can learn more from your failures than your success. And farming is farming is farming. If you're already a good farmer and you start bringing these solutions into your farm, you can be like, whoa. And if you're not a good farmer already, then it's just time, and lucky you get KNF to start, because you're not damaging the soil. Your runoff is good. You can, the best thing, you can spray this with your keiki. The kid come in the field, you can spray them. They drink it when you're not looking. It's like, what else can you do that with?
Right on. It's hard, on Lanai for us all to do everything. We have our farm split. We have crops one side and animals another side. I mean, like spaced far apart. So one of my friends is a pig farmer here, and I really want to be able to help him raise healthier animals. And then we can start, using the litter, for the vegetable farmers. Where's the best place to learn about the pig pens? How to
come Big Island? Come my place. I teach you fast, but the best way, I did a week-long pig seminar. It's on YouTube. Master Cho taught that. But the best place, the UHCTAR has some material. The guy Mike DuPont he just retired from the university, but he was the main guy doing it. He helped you jump through all the hoops of the Department of Health and all that. But like I was telling, I'm just gonna read your name, Angel. It's Angel. Wait, you muted. Quote of 2020.
Angel.
Angel. Oh,
Just 2 L's. Make it different.
yeah, I cannot read from Buddha. Nah. But Angel, like I was telling her, the best place to start with the chickens, you know, is the LAB. Like you go into the pig pen, just spray a little LAB, and you don't gotta convert the whole thing right away. Just start small. Just start, put those things in, and in just even a small reduction in smell means that your pathogenic bacteria level is going down. And that's the key, because once you can get the the pathogens out, then you can get the pigs inoculated. Then you have less disease, less virus. You don't need to inoculate, and then you can start to use that product afterward. And that's your most valuable manures is coming out, especially when the pigs eat the natural farming stuff.
Okay, any last few questions? We don't want to take up too much of Drake's time. We can talk to him about consulting later on. We have some extra money, Drake, so.
Oh yeah, Reba was threatening me to bring me to Maui, so I like that.
Oh.
I haven't seen Reba for almost a year, because last time I seen her was at the convention. I haven't been to Maui for a while.
Oh yeah. Well, we can see. I don't know if we have that much money, but we'll see.
Oh, wait, you're gonna make me swim? Nah.
Maybe.
Yeah, well, anyway, if you guys want support, can reach out. Like I said, my email is Drake, DRAKE @pureknf.org. And you know, like I said, the address for sending Lao Lao is PO Box 59, Papaico. No. But yeah, reach out. You know, and if I get money back, that's awesome. Whatever, you know, I feel like if I can teach you and you can do good, then hey, it's good. But you know, I also get bills, so whatever, you know. And I appreciate this. Hope you guys can bring this to the Farmers Union. Really hope this is, you know, because we're all about regenerative ag. Hope it can be a core. And as you guys go through as the Farm Apprentice mentors, that you can implement this in a way where it's going to be meaningful for people to see, so that it's like, you know, because that's the biggest way to spread, is to make success and make it attractive. And when you're doing it and you're smiling and you're happy and it's growing, it's like you cannot stop guys from learning. They're gonna spy on you. They're gonna be in the bushes like, what is that guy doing? And it's like unreal. So I just wish you the most success. I wish you, you know, this path that you can be part of agriculture, but more than that, you can make Hawaii one better place. So thank you.
Thank you, Drake. This was awesome. And so even for me, I mean, obviously for me, but so informative and so much good info. So yeah, thank you.
Right
I
on.
hope everyone has a good night.
Oh, McKenna.
Oh, yes.